Good afternoon and welcome to the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. Secretary, will you please take roll?
Assembly members Anderson. Present. Carter.
Present.
Cole. Here. Hardy. Here. Howdigi. Kasama. Here. Miller. Here. Monroe Moreno. O'Neill. Here. Roth. Here. Torres Fawcett. Yeager. Urick. And Chair Marzola.
And I am here. Please mark members present once they arrive. Welcome everyone that is here today in Carson City on a Friday, those in Las Vegas, and anyone tuning in over the internet. Today we will hear 6 bills: Senate Bill 63, Senate Bill 165, 173, 217, 317, and 389. I do plan to take those in order. We will also conduct a work session. Before we get started, I would like to make a few housekeeping announcements. Member of the public may provide testimony in various ways, all of which can be listed on the agenda. When testifying, please remember to turn on your microphone to speak and off to listen. Also remember to state and spell your name for the record. Committee information is available on the legislature's website. You may also watch our meetings through the legislature's YouTube channel. We ask that public comment be kept to 2 minutes per person so that everyone can be accommodated. As always, I expect courtesy and respect in all our interactions. Please remember to either turn off or silence all of your electronic devices, especially your cell phones. And with that, we will begin our work session. It is not customary for a committee to take testimony or otherwise rehear bills during a work session. However, I may invite a witness to come forward for clarification or questions during a consideration of a measure. We will start with Senate Bill 170.
Senate Bill 170 revised provisions relating to industrial insurance, sponsored by Senator Steinbeck, heard May 28th, and there are no proposed amendments.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? I don't see any, and I'll entertain a motion to do pass on Senate Bill 170. So moved. I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there a second? I have a second from Assembly Member Carter. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I'll assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Carter. Next is Senate Bill 172. Oh. No, we're taking actually that one off calendar for as of now. We will move to Senate Bill 231.
Senate Bill 231 establishes provisions relating to the collection and destruction of unused drugs, sponsored by Senator Stone, heard May 28th, and there are no proposed amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions on Senate Bill 231? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to do pass. I have a first from Assembly Member Miller, a second from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I'll assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Urick. Next, Senate Bill 344.
Senate Bill 344 requires certain health insurance to cover certain screenings for certain genetic disorders, sponsored by Senator Cannizzaro, heard May 28th, and there are no proposed amendments.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions on Senate Bill 344? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to do pass. I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there a second? Second from Assembly Member Hardy. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I'll assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Hardy. Next is Senate Bill 376.
Senate Bill 376 revised provisions governing industrial insurance, sponsored by Senator Daly, heard May 28th, and there are no proposed amendments.
Thank you. Committee members, are there any questions? I'll entertain a motion to do pass. I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there a second? I have a second from Assembly Member Anderson. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I'll assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Anderson. And that concludes our work session for now. I will now open a hearing on Senate Bill 63. This measure revises provisions relating to the use of certain online products and services by minors and children. Attorney General Ford, welcome to Commerce and Labor and all of your presenters. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Mazzola and members of the Assembly Commerce and Labor Committee. My name is Aaron Ford, and I am your Attorney General. Here today to present to you Senate Bill 63, which my office affectionately refers to as Victoria's Law, for reasons that will become apparent later in our presentation. Senate Bill 63 presents us an opportunity to discuss something that, frankly, should unite all of us, and that's keeping our kids safe, this time in the context of digital platforms. In that regard, this bill has a tripartite purpose, namely predation, privacy, and the protection of youth's mental health. As regards the first, predation, we all know that digital platforms, social media, are not just a tool anymore. They are seemingly the air that our kids breathe. They don't remember a world without it. And while it's changed the way that we also connect, it has given predators a direct line to our children. Let's be clear, predators aren't always now only lurking in dark alleys. They don't have to hang around playgrounds or malls anymore. They can slide into a child's DMs or direct messages and pose as a peer-aged friend and start the process of grooming these kids, slowly breaking down the kids' defenses until they can exploit them. In written testimony presented to this committee, you will read from my investigations team how predators use some digital platforms to shower kids with attention, with compliments, and even gifts, such as virtual game tokens. They make the child feel special and understood, like they finally know someone who gets them. Over time, they manipulate the child into taking risks, sharing personal details, some photos, or engaging in conversations that they normally wouldn't have. And once that happens, things escalate quickly. We've seen the cases in my office. Children being blackmailed, harassed, and in some cases lured into real-world danger. This isn't a hypothetical, y'all. It's happening right now. Investigators in my office and across the state are working on these cases every single day, including right now as I speak. The predators they're chasing are smart, they're patient, and they're relentless. And unfortunately, digital platforms, sometimes, albeit unwillingly, make their jobs way too easy. Additional written testimony submitted to this committee supports this motion. A number of students from Equipo Academy in East Las Vegas testified in the Senate, and they implored this body to do something about the violence and the other unhealthy behaviors that are so easily amplified on digital platforms. In just a few minutes, you'll hear from the young lady to my left, Bethany Ferris, a mother from Reno, who will testify as to her own experience as a mother who has suffered greatly because of the harms her daughter experienced on various digital platforms. In addition, students, parents, and law enforcement professionals who encounter these dangers on a daily basis also support the need for protections proposed in this bill, which, in its current iteration, takes simple, common-sense steps to put real guardrails in place, and it locks down children's data. Companies can't collect information on a child's social media usage and then turn around and use it to track or otherwise advertise to them. In my estimation, keeping kids safe shouldn't be optional, and we're making sure it's not. But keeping kids safe online isn't just about blocking predators. It's also about the well-being and mental health of our children and the adolescents, which brings me to the second purpose of the bill. On this point, I readily admit, let me repeat, I readily admit that data suggests that adolescents can benefit and have beneficial experiences with age-appropriate use of social media. But there's also a large body of data that shows a full-blown mental health crisis among children, and we can't afford to ignore it. What we know is this: according to the Pew Research Center, 95% of youth ages 13 to 17 say they use social media, and more than a third report that they are on social media almost constantly. That makes sense because platforms are actually designed to be addictive. keeping kids locked in an endless cycle of comparison, validation, and exposure to content that can be toxic. In this regard, exposure to cyberbullying and cyber hate leaves kids feeling isolated, anxious, and depressed more than ever. And some of this encourages self-harm and maladaptive behavior because it warps our self-esteem, especially for teenage girls. Digital platforms, we all know, are built by design to keep people, especially young people, engaged as long as possible. Algorithms push extreme information because it keeps users hooked. They collect more data. The more time these users spend on their platforms and the more data that they collect, the more money they can make. Our bill seeks to curb corporate malfeasance by imposing certain guardrails for covered digital platforms to implement related to minors' accounts, with certain exceptions, as well as empowering parents and legal guardians to set exactly what their children are not to use and see and utilize and interact with on digital accounts. It's a parent empowerment bill. And finally, let's address one more thing: privacy. This iteration of Senate Bill 63 also implements robust privacy protections for children under the age of 13 who are using these online platforms. These protections are largely based off of House Bill 707 from the Virginia Legislature, which was signed into law in 2024. Senate Bill 63 would now require certain online platforms to obtain the consent of a parent or guardian of a child under the age of 13 before using that child's personal data in any way. Further, those online platforms would be completely prohibited from using such a child's personal data for providing targeted advertising to the child, selling the personal data of the child, or profiling the child in any way. That's from the Virginia bill. Further, unless a narrow exception applies, these online platforms would be prohibited from collecting the precise geolocation data from a user that they know to be a child under the age of 13. Senate Bill 63 also now requires online platforms to conduct data protection assessments when it collects data of users who are under the age of 13. These assessments must list the benefits and risks of collecting, retaining, and using the data, and must also work to reduce the risks that they identify. The online platforms would need to make these assessments available to my office upon request. Online platforms will be given 30 days to remedy any violation that these data protection provisions require, and a failure to remedy that violation would constitute a deceptive trade practice under our statutes. I will say before I turn the mic to Ms. Ferris, Chair Marzola, this has been a labor that has taken the entirety of this session to get to this point. When we presented this bill in the Senate, we had, and you may have today, a lot of opposition testimony. We had a working group that we convened, inquired from them on how best to articulate a bill to accommodate the three goals that I've mentioned: predation, privacy, and protection of mental health. We received some amendments. We were able to accommodate a lot of those things. A big concession that I made at the very beginning, I wanted age verification. I wanted all of these social media and digital platform companies to verify ages. I took that out. That was a humongous concession because many said, even though they're already doing it, by the way, because they have teen accounts. So they know how to verify age because they have teen accounts. But they complained that they couldn't get it done, and so I conceded to that, acquiesced to it, and instead what we did was put in a litany of parental controls that I've just described in this bill. We would hope that we're able to continue this bill moving forward and that we'll be able to get this put out because this is an opportunity for us to protect our youth, to empower parents to be more engaged if they want to be engaged, and to be able to protect their children as they utilize these platforms. And with that, I'd like to introduce to the committee Bethany Ferris. And then I'll turn it over to Mark Kruger to briefly summarize the substance of the bill, and then we will be out of your hair.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Assembly members. Thank you for the introduction. This is Victoria. This is my daughter. She was 11 when she died. Victoria was born on June 12, 2013 at 12:22 p.m. She was so full of energy, passion, and way too smart for her own good. I had the pleasure of being her mother for 11 years, as she died on a Friday, August 23, 2024. I found her hanging from her bed. She is the youngest preteen to have committed suicide in Washoe County. Did you know that the #1 killer of Washoe County in teens and preteens is suicide? It's amazing how you don't become aware until it actually happens to you. If this bill passes, it will save so many other parents from having to go through what I went through. From the grief and the hard questions such as, do you want your daughter cremated or buried? Something I never thought I would have to answer. Victoria was able to look up on TikTok how to tie the knot that ended her life. She also had a TikTok video playing while she hung there dying that played over and over and over again. And it was of 2 sisters dancing around, and it was stating, you're not gonna know this, but in 5 years, I'm gonna try over and over again. So my daughter was able to watch all these sad reels that eventually pushed her to kill herself. Let me see. She had so many hidden TikTok accounts that I was not aware of. All I ever saw her do was her little dances that she just practiced over and over. I wasn't aware of the 5 other accounts that she had hidden. If there had been laws like this in place, I would have got those pop-up notifications of your daughter's watching these suicide videos, your daughter's looking up this. If I had been aware, I might have been able to save her. My family was torn apart from this tragedy, and we're still trying to pick up the pieces. I got so much ridicule, and I got judged so hard of how I should have been a better mother. I should have watched her more closely. But unfortunately, without any of these laws in place, I wasn't able to watch her every move. But if there was something in place saying, again, your daughter has this, your daughter's watching this, I could have monitored her a lot better. Even her creating a fake account and putting in a birthday that said she was 18, and there not being any verification, that would have been huge. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out today, and thank you for allowing Victoria and I and her sister Maymay to be here today. Thank you.
Chairman Zola, before I have Mark Kruger testify, I want to be clear on something. This is a horrible story, and it makes people cry. Maymay is her sister, Victoria's sister. I want to be clear that we did not seek out this testimony. Bethany Ferris saw that my office was undertaking the effort to engage with and hold social media accountable for the detrimental impacts that it has on mental health of children. She reached out to my office and asked to be engaged in this conversation, as painful as it is. She's but one example of what we hear about and what we know about, and why, as difficult as it has been to bring this bill and to bring it before you, to get it to a position where we think it should be passed, it is well worth the fight. And we'll continue to work as much as you require us to get it over the finish line, but I just want you to understand how important we believe this bill is. And with that, we will spend the last few minutes that we have of our time to allow Mark to go through the elements of the bill as amended.
Thank you, General. Mark Kruger, for the record, Chief Deputy Attorney General. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I will briefly go through the provisions of the bill. I will try to keep it high level, and if you have any questions, of course, I'm ready to answer them. Section 2 of the bill titles it the Nevada Youth Online Safety Act. Sections 3 essentially through 11 provide definitions for this legislation. I would like to highlight section 4.5 because that provides the definition for a covered digital platform and includes exclusions for those definitions. Notably, some of those exclusions are electronic mail, text messages, video conferencing, teleconferencing, cloud storage, educational instructional materials, tech support, employment opportunities and career development, news, sports and entertainment, employer-employee communications, and telehealth. In addition to social, gaming, gambling type products. Section 12 of the bill ensures that the legislation only applies to the state of Nevada. Sections 13 through 17 were deleted by amendment. Section 18 prohibits digital platforms from using personal information of a minor in an algorithmic recommendation system unless that data is being used to affirmatively prevent content or advertising that is prohibited by law. And examples of this are such as like alcohol, tobacco, cannabis products, things like that. It also allows contextual information delivery and provides definitions for these terms. Section 19 requires digital platforms to set up guardrails. These are the guardrails General Ford was talking about that can be toggled off and on or disabled or enabled at the request of the parent or guardian for the minor user's account. And these features include primarily infinite scrolling, which the bill defines as limiting the amount of content to 6 discrete items or 7 minutes of continuous content. The display of interactive metrics, icons or emoticons, these are like likes, shares, etc. Videos and that play automatically without being clicked on, and finally functions that allow a user or advertiser to broadcast live video content in real time. Section 20 requires digital platforms to either establish safeguards to limit the amount of time minors use and the hour of day in which the digital platforms send notifications, and it requires them to be reasonable, or alternatively refrain from sending notifications to minor users between certain hours of the day during the school year and certain times at night. It also establishes guardrails for parents and guardians to toggle off notices during those same school hours or during certain times of the night. Section 21 provides that a violation of the Act is a violation of the Deceptive Trade Practices Act and subject to those penalties. Section 23 incorporates the data privacy and protection provisions of the children's data from the Virginia legislation, H 707, as General Ford indicated. Those are incorporated into sections 24 through 35 of the Act. Sections 24 through 30 provide definitions for those sections. Section 32 provides exclusions for the applicability of those sections, and Section 33 requires consent of a parent or guardian before processing personal data of a child under the age of 13. It also prohibits processing of child's data for targeted advertising, selling personal data of the children, and profiling the child, or for any other purpose that's not reasonably necessary and limited in duration. And it requires disclosure before processing a child's data. It also prohibits geolocating data of a child without disclosure. Section 34 requires controls that offer products or services to a child. Controllers are the definition of the data platforms that are used in the first part of the bill. It also provides the ability of the Attorney General to receive the data protection assessment, which is created as part of the controller's duty under the bill. And Section 35 provides for enforcement by the Attorney General. Finally, Sections 36 is standard for the non-public information, and Sections 37 and 38 provide for the effective dates of the bill. Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you for being here. And Ms. Ferris, I can't imagine what you have gone through. And so please know that my heart goes to you. Thank you for being a voice, for being here today, for being in the Senate, telling your story. Because the more that we hear it, right, the better it is. And you're making a huge difference. I agree with Attorney General Ford. I think us protecting children should be in our, forefront at all times, whether you're a parent or not. And if we're going to protect them, we should protect them in all sorts of platforms. And so with that, we will start with Assemblymember Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And I, of course, echo the Chair's sentiments. And I'm so sorry your baby's not here. I'm a teacher. And so I see just how horrific the damage that is done for our kids mentally, socially, academically, of course, their safety, their attention spans, everything. In fact, at my school, when we heard this year that the funding may run out for Chromebooks, most of the teachers were celebrating. Please get them out of our schools. And I've been on that side too with my students, where we've lost students to suicide because of the internet, because of the pressure of being a teenage influencer, or because of the other students bullying and constantly telling them to do something. I've also been on a police ride-along the moment that a Safe Voice hit came in and said, this kid at this house right now at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night is researching, how do I kill myself? And so, I said this in a hearing the other day, people, I'm a strong advocate of the First Amendment, but I'm also way conservative when it comes to our kids. And unlike library books where kids have the ability to walk by them or not choose them or put it back if they get uncomfortable, the internet, social media, things are pumped out to us that we don't want to see. And so once that's in there, it's in there. And again, none of us having to grow up with the pressure or the risk of the internet. And so my question is, if I had time, I'd tell everyone what happened when I gave my students a 30-day no social media challenge. And that by day 3, I saw new kids walking in the door, celebrating, exciting about, I made all these new friends and we've done all these great things. And they were different kids when they were allowed to be kids again. So my question, Attorney General, is in considering this bill, and it's very robust, I see you've covered as many angles as you possibly could. Was there any consideration given to empowering the schools with the ability to, one, with these Chromebooks, school-issued, paid-for Chromebooks, where we say it's only supposed to be used for school activities and academic, but we can see everything they're doing, and it's definitely not, to, one, empower the schools to literally lock down on these devices, and our ability as educators or anyone working with the youth, nonprofits, coaches, anyone that is there to protect youth, to also make reports. How would we make reports to your offices when such things are in violation? Because, again, we're mandated reporters. And
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aaron Ford, for the record. Director, through you, Madam Chair. Direct.
You can go direct.
Chair, Madam Miller, thank you so much, Assemblymember Miller. This is, appreciate the conversation and I appreciate the questions. I will say that one of the exceptions that we made to some of the prohibitions is in the educational setting, meaning that to the extent educational institutions are allowing it, they can maintain and have whatever requirements they have that they would like to. So if you have particular restrictions on the use of Chromebooks and apps being on them, this does not negatively affect that. In fact, I think it empowers you even more because it doesn't require you to consider additional restrictions and how it may interplay with this particular bill. That's I think partially responsive to your first question. What I will say about reporting, we have actually a survey on our webpage right now where people can go to our webpage and fill out a survey to interact with us on the ways that they're interacting and what they're hearing about in a social media context. We also have a consumer protection line that may or may not be able to be completely useful, but it certainly gets to us and we can direct folks to the right arena oftentimes when they give us a phone call. So those are a couple of answers that I can provide to you. I wanted to offer my colleague to my right if he has any additional things to add, Mark Kruger, my Chief of Consumer Protection.
Thank you, Attorney General. Assemblymember Miller, Mark Kruger for the record. Thank you for your comments. They're spot on, and that is the exact same comments we've heard from not only teachers, but every single person who interacts with youth, including parents and guardians. So these types of comments, there's no shortage of them. As Attorney General Ford said, we do have a survey which we can actually input additional comments, and we always do take complaints. If you want to submit them, we'll certainly review them. So thank you.
My next question was to the timing, because I saw in the bill that you did have certain restraints from like 8 to 3, typical school hours, and then midnight to 6. And I was just wondering if there was consideration of, midnight, we had like a lot of kids in bed before midnight and stuff, what the consideration, why it was so late and maybe not earlier in the evening.
Aaron, for the record, it's funny because Mark is testifying to me. That's what I want to change. Sorry, I made him stick with midnight. We started the conversation in those arenas. We've seen other iterations of these efforts. We tried to pick, generally speaking, because kids might work, for example, and maybe there's some need for them to be up at that time. And so we were trying to be responsive to those different types of variances in the arena there. But again, I want to remind folks, these are parental choice toggles. Right? A parent can go in and say, I don't want my kid getting notifications between 12 and 6. Some platforms you will hear testify already have these types of things available, right? Where you can say you can only be on for an hour, irrespective of what time it is during the day. But this bill requires the options of school hours and midnight to 6 to be toggled, the ability to be toggled on and off relative to what these platforms offer for their children and their teens. Thank you.
Assemblymember Urick.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Attorney General, it's always good to see you, sir. And I have to tell you how much I appreciate you bringing a bill like this to address what is a very significant concern that I think everybody on this dais can appreciate. And ma'am, I'm so sorry to hear your story, and I thank you for the courage that you've demonstrated to come and tell that story to help us put a real-life experience to the challenges that we're trying to hit at here. So my question, Mr. Attorney General, is, again, while understanding and appreciating the intent and what I think the intent is here, widespread, my question comes in section 4.5, specifically on the definition of covered digital platforms that I'm assuming specifically on the what is not included, and that's going to be on C and D under subsection 2, that it looks like it's excluding some of the online gaming platforms like Roblox, right, is the one that I keep hearing. And so I don't know if that would be covered under this, but certainly, as I understand it, those includes social interactions, user-generated content, in-game purchases, and I've even gone online and seen there's online parental platforms about these types of games, and they appear to be excluded in here. So I guess on the record, can you tell us, are these types of platforms, would they be excluded under your bill? And if so, what would be the purpose of excluding those platforms?
Aaron Ford, for the record, thank you for the question, Assemblymember Urick. They are not excluded. The phraseology relative to gaming was Nevada-type gaming, where we're gambling, so to speak, right? And we have a gaming definition under Section 4.7. A gaming licensee has the meaning ascribed to licensee in NRS 463.0171. So online games, gamers, is different from gaming, and we were trying to accommodate the gaming component, and it has caused confusion. So let me clear that up right now.
Thank you for that response. And my colleague asked one of my questions. I wanted to confirm that, sorry, and I may not use the right lingo. I don't, if you're playing a video game, you have these chat rooms, right? And so I wanted to make sure that we were not excluding them, whether Roblox or if you're at home in your game console.
Thank you, Chair. Mark Kruger for the record. Under the definition of a covered digital platform, gaming platforms are not excluded. However, there is a provision that allows certain online gaming to have the ability to talk that doesn't get covered by the content that's included in Section 19. So there is a little leeway for some of those gamer type platforms. I get mixed up between the two too as far as how to say it, but they're not excluded specifically from the bill.
And if I can follow up on that, when you say it gives them a little leeway, what does that mean?
So, Mark Kruger for the record, Chair, under Section 19, those are the guardrails that we were speaking about that get to be put up. Two of the guardrails have a provision about content, and it excludes those particular guardrails from the content definition. So that's how they have a little bit of wiggle room in Section 19. So in the gaming world, when they're online gaming, they're able to chat kind of like real time in the game itself. And so it's part of the gameplay, if you will. It's a component to the gameplay. So they're allowed to continue to do the chatting in the gameplay, and the parents don't have the opportunity to toggle that off and on. So they would be permitted. Presumably, parents would, if they were wanting them not to be part of that gameplay piece, would either say, you can't, participate in that part of that game, or they would not let them play the game, if that helps.
It does, but I guess my confusion is, why are we excluding that? Why aren't we putting safeguards when it comes to these chat rooms, right? Because it's my understanding I can be 10 years old, I'm playing a game, I have a headset on, and I can be speaking to 40, 50-year-old, right? And things can happen, and sometimes tend to happen. So, and I understand that we're trying to protect children, but I guess what I don't understand is we're protecting them in some spaces, but not all.
Aaron Ford, for the record, I think the most contextual answer to provide in that regard is it's not perfect. It's a step in the right direction, in my estimation. It was an intent to compromise to move the bill forward. But I will say this, if this committee so desires, you can exclude them. What I present to you is the compromise legislation that we were able to come to, having had over a dozen folks opposing us, moving them all to neutral with the exception of, to my knowledge, 2 entities and 2 industry groups to whom, to which they belonged. So, it's not perfect. Maggie Carlton used to say all the time, don't let the good be the enemy of, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And, this is a step in the right direction in my regard, in my estimation. And so that's the truthful response about that.
Thank you for your response. Assemblymember Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing forward this legislation. I would agree with you. I'm so sorry for you and then also for your daughter. The loss is huge. As you know, I'm a high school teacher. So I'm wondering why in one section of the bill, it is, I think it's section 5, it speaks about minor being who is less than 18. And then it changes in section 25 to utilize child. Why is it not consistent? Because I can tell you, and I'm so happy that one of my colleagues brought up the hours, because most of my students, who I'm missing right now, are usually scrolling between the hours of 12:30 and 3:30, and then I can't figure out why they're asleep in my class, 12:30 a.m. to 3:30 a.m., because my class is awesome. So everybody would be very excited to be in my class, for those of you that are laughing. Anyway, but why is it not consistent as a minor under the age of 18?
Aaron Ford, for the record, I'm giggling again because Mark Kruger told me to change that too. What had happened was, this is a very real response. Look, when we were negotiating this bill, I was told by the working group that if I were to simply to adopt the Virginia-based bill, everybody would have been fine. Okay, I'd have had no opposition. Everybody was cool with Virginia, right? But I don't want Virginia. I want a Virginia Plus. And what you have before you is a Virginia Plus bill. The Virginia bill started at age 13. And so that's why you have 13 under that particular provision. A man of my word, I did not want to try to take the Virginia bill, apply it to the entirety of my bill, make it 18 and under, because I thought that that would have been disingenuous and would have opened up the door, frankly, for people to come in and say, I didn't agree to that, and so I'm now moved from net neutral back to opposition. And so what you see, again, is the quintessential example of compromise legislation, where I agreed to the Virginia bill, which incorporated 13 years of age, but the plus part is my bill that I initially started with, that is 18 and under.
So,
Thank you. And the follow-up is really just how much I appreciate Section 19 and the fact that you are making it very clear that if there's a continual scrolling of, what is it, 7, I think it was? I can't remember now how many, that's going to hit where somebody's going to be contacted right away, is what I believe is what the intent of that, and I think that's in Section 19. I just want to make sure that that is what the intent of Section 19, when it is the number of times other users have shared, liked, the continual clicking. Just want to make sure I've got that right.
Mark Kruger for the record. Thank you, Assemblymember Anderson, for the question. Section 19 does limit the infinite scrolling to content to 6 discrete items or 7 minutes of continuous content. Remember, Section 19 is the guardrail, so it's the point of where parents or guardians can request that this be turned off, or they can go on themselves and toggle it off. We left that to the platforms to figure it out. So they can turn it off for their minor user or turn it back on for their minor user as they see fit. There isn't a notification requirement under the bill. That doesn't mean that platforms couldn't build that in as well, and we would encourage platforms to do so. But it does put the power back into the parents to be able to turn these features off or on as they seem fit for their children and their children's use of the platforms.
Assemblymember Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. And ma'am, thank you for being here. My heart breaks for you as a mother myself and for your family. But I appreciate you sharing your story and hopes that this will prevent it happening to somebody else's child. It's a sad fact of the world we live in that we even have to talk about this, but you know, it's the world and we have to face it and do what we can to try and protect our children. So my question is a perfect segue from my colleagues here about the parent involvement. So I'm just wondering, like, how would that work? How are you would you verify that it's like an actual parent? I mean, is this the parents getting the phone and turning it off, or they're notifying the platform, you know, that they want to receive the notifications? And, you know, there's a conversation of kids put in different birth dates, so they, you know, or say that they're 18 or older. How are you going to know, like, it's a real parent making the request?
Mark Kruger for the record. Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Hardy. So, you know, when we were writing this legislation, what we didn't want to do was step on the platform's ability to function and verify ages if they wanted to on how they would do it. But we knew that parents could reach out. If parents reached out and put the platform on notice that it was their child that they wanted to have controls over, then the platforms have the ability to do that. They currently all have the ability to do that because they have teen accounts, they have minor accounts, and they're required by federal law to, if they know that and discover a child is under the age of 13, they need to do affirmative conduct to get consent, things like that. So they are all very aware of how to go about doing it. What we didn't want to do was constrain them to, you must do it X, Y, and Z. We had age verification in here originally. We agreed to pull it out. And in so doing, even when we had it in, we didn't say, this is the type of age verification. We just had it, it must be age verification up to 95% accurate. So at this point in time, we'd leave it up to the platforms to decide how they want to determine whether or not, you know, that is an actual parent that's reaching in and saying, yes, I want to turn off the conduct, these restrictions on my children. I would note one other little thing. Because these are restrictions that you can toggle off, it doesn't make a lot of sense for a child to pretend to sign on and go, yeah, I want to turn off my restrictions or my friend's restrictions. That's not what they're trying to do, because children tend to, as all the teachers here have talked about today, tend to be hooked and want more time on the platform. That's what the platforms are designed to do. I hope that answers your question.
Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for bringing this piece of legislation and for joining us to testify on this bill. Obviously, working with kids, I definitely see like the impact that social media has. My question is kind of in regards to like what laws we've seen in other states. It seems to be that the Virginia law is the law that has stood up, you know, in any legal challenges. So I'm wondering if you could address how this is different from that, or what some of the differences are and why.
Aaron, for the record, thank you so much for the question. A couple of responses, and I'm going to kick it to Mr. Kruger. This is Virginia Plus, so everything that's in Virginia is in this bill. Okay, and that's pretty much the privacy components that Virginia passed. I will note that when the governor of Virginia received this bill from its legislature, it said, I'm going to sign it, but it doesn't go far enough. They wanted, essentially, Virginia Plus. They wanted to be able to require age verification and a few additional things, but all that they could do, again, was to compromise and not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So they have Virginia, which is the reason why, and it was approved on, This is the updated one. Yeah, and they subsequently did amend the Virginia bill on May 2nd, 2025 to add additional protections. So again, being true to my word, I did not incorporate the updated amendments to the Virginia bill that were adopted on May 2nd, 2025. We're sticking with the May 17th, 2024 version that's in this bill. The plus component is the toggle on and off ability and the guardrails we've talked about infinite scrolling and about the metrics and things of that sort. There have been other bills similar to this that have withstood scrutiny as well. Arkansas comes to mind, but again, I don't want to misspeak, so I'm going to give that answer, that question to Mr. Kruger.
Thank you, Mark Kruger, for the record. Unfortunately, I didn't bring the document with me today. I neglected to do so, and I apologize. But what our team did was we went and looked at all of the legislation that had either been passed or is pending in the United States on addressing these very same issues, and there is a lot of it. Our team put together a voluminous packet that outlined all of it, and then what we did was we took different legislation and we said, what is it? What's happening to it? Is it being challenged? And if it is being challenged, is it surviving the challenge? And we wanted to write our law very carefully so that we avoided those First Amendment issues. We avoided, talking about or limiting content at all. So that you will not find that in this bill. We feel very confident that the challenges, when they do come, and they will, that we can, this bill will survive judicial scrutiny. And I can certainly give additional information about what bills have withstood judicial scrutiny following this committee hearing.
Thank you, and I appreciate that answer. I guess my questions are in regard to Section 19, whether or not these are like evidence-based approaches to improving our use of social media, specifically because I think there's other ways that parents can do this. I have a good friend who has a daughter who was in high school, and she used her service provider, T-Mobile, AT&T, whatever it was, to control their phone use and what times they shut on, shut off, what apps were available at what times of the day, when they could open it. So it seems to me that there are ways for parents to do this now, and that the actual issue is education and making sure that our families know that these are ways that you can support your students or your child with healthy social media use, or what good digital citizenship looks like. And I think that for me, it seems like that's the larger issue. I have families in my office regularly when I'm back in Vegas because their student is using social media inappropriately, and we're educating the parent on what they can do to support their child with good social media usage and how they can help, make sure their student doesn't have access to this technology at certain times of the day. And so while I understand the issue, but it seems to me like there's a bigger education concern. And how do we I don't see this bill solving that much larger issue, because even if this were all available, my students are smart. They're just gonna say that they're 20 and they're gonna create these accounts. So how do we actually do something to ensure that parents understand? Because this creates a policy for the apps, but I think what you're gonna see is just kids are gonna create accounts saying they're 19.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Aaron Ford for the record, and I don't disagree with much of what you said. There is no doubt that there are other ways in which to address some of these, and there is, in fact, a larger education issue to take place. I learned a long time ago that we can't solve every ill with one piece of legislation, right? And so I don't purport that this bill is going to solve the larger communications issue, but it does provide a tool, an additional tool that parents can utilize to what else may be out there. And I will also say this, you're right, folks are smart. Predators have been smart as well. They've gotten into these apps and figured out a way to lure these kids, and that was the first prong that I talked about, cutting down on predators, right? And then protecting the privacy, and then also protecting the mental health component. So there's a tripartite approach here. I'll also say this, yes, children are smart, and they're gonna look for ways to get around the law. I've said this, I think, twice in this bill in this session. There's not a law in the books, Assembly member, that people don't try to get around. I mean, everyone tries to get around. We got traffic laws, people still run red lights, right? And at the end of the day, we still have to try to operate in a way that is going to put up safeguards and protect, in this instance, some of the most vulnerable folks in our communities, the youth. And we're keeping up with technology. Speaking of traffic, I said before as well, we didn't need traffic laws until the cars were created. We didn't need these types of tools until social media came into being and the digital platforms were created. And so we are trying to keep up with technology provide parents tools, additional tools that are out there to protect their children from predators online, to protect their privacy, and to protect their mental health.
Thank you. And going back to my first question, if that's all right, but is there any evidence that the items listed in section 19 support with those goals? Because that's what I haven't seen. I've heard like anecdotal, well, if we cut down on scrolling, that supports. But I want to know, is there any database evidence that supports that?
The short, Aaron Ford, for the record, the short answer is absolutely. There is empirical evidence, there is quantitative evidence, there is qualitative evidence, there is PhD-based evidence, there are scholars who testify in this particular arena all the time, and there are articles that come out. In fact, there's a Washington Post article that we were going to be able to share about some of the problems that we're seeing in that particular regard. We didn't bring any of that literature, but we can absolutely supplement the record with research and evidence from folks who opine on these areas to demonstrate that if you are to provide these types of opportunities for parents to get engaged and to limit their children's experiences with these platforms, that it is going to increase. I mean, you've heard Member Miller, after 3 days, kids coming in and behaving differently, right? I know that's anecdotal, but the point I'm making is there are certainly others out there who have demonstrated and researched this and can come back and support the contentions that we're putting forth here that this will be helpful.
Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank you for being here and sharing your personal experience with a room full of strangers. I just appreciate the courage that takes and to frame this issue. Before my question, I have just a little bit of a soapbox to get on, and I apologize, Attorney General, I missed the beginning of your presentation, but I sort of go back and forth in my mind about whether the advent of social media has been a net negative or net positive for society, and I know one thing is clear to me. I think probably the greatest failing of the last 20 or 25 years is that we didn't realize what social media would do to our youth, and this data targeting that we as adults get, right? It feels oppressive sometimes. I can't look at something without getting served up a bunch of the same ads the second I spend 5 seconds looking at one of them, and to think that our youth have a chance to even sort of process that when their brains aren't mature. I mean, I think we really have utterly failed as a society. We should have gotten ahead of this. We didn't. We can't go back in time, and so I applaud you for trying to address the problem as we find it today, and it's an extraordinarily complex problem today because we have companies that have built back-end infrastructure. They're very good at what they do. They know what you want to see. They'll give you more of it and more of it and more of it. A lot of it is based on, they want to sell you products, right? They want you to look at advertisements. That's the monetization of social media, and I get that as a business construct, but we have to protect our most vulnerable. And so that's the soapbox. The thank you is for working on this issue. The question is this one. As you might imagine, I've gotten quite a few inquiries and quite a few meetings about this bill, mostly from folks who don't like the bill much the way it is now. And so I just wanted to ask you to address one of the claims that I've heard, and that is this, that some of the online companies we're talking about, they've developed their own tools for young users and vulnerable users to try to make sure that they aren't seeing harmful content. I mean, we know what the illegal content is that they can't see, but there's other content that could be harmful given the context. And so the argument that has been made to me is some of their back-end processes actually help, and that your bill is going to prevent them from using those. I know I'm not using the correct terminology, but the back-end infrastructure that they use to make sure that harmful content isn't being seen that might not necessarily be de facto harmful content. So long question, but if you could just address that for me in terms of how you would respond to that particular argument, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you, Speaker Yeager. I appreciate that question. And let me say a couple points. First of which, we worked all the way up until the 115th day of session with people who didn't like the bill. I would hope that based on the conversations that I've had with every single one of these folks who claim to be in opposition, did not mislead me into thinking that they were going to be in neutral on this side and then come to you and have more. If you've had more than 4 conversations with folks, okay, hallelujah. Because that's what I would hope, because we have worked diligently to address all of these issues, gave the industry an opportunity to bring to me something that I could consider that would fulfill the 3 prongs that I've mentioned to you. They brought me Virginia, which did not accomplish that, and here's where we are. We've even had continued conversation back and forth with language that they may be able to present to us that would accommodate my concerns without moving folks out of neutral, back into opposition and things of that sort. So there's been some very genuine, good faith discussion back and forth. We've not been able to come to an agreement on that. But your question is about content, Assemblyman Yeager. This bill isn't about content. It doesn't touch content. One of the reasons why is because we don't want to be accused of abridging the First Amendment. We've seen what happened in California and other places where they've purported to address bad content. What we are doing is operating in a manner of time, place, and manner of the delivery of content, right? So irrespective of how they want to characterize what they are presenting to their users, this bill applies equally, right? If what they are doing is beneficial in their estimation from a content perspective, God bless them. That is not anything that this bill purports to address, wants to address, can even address in a way that we feel comfortable trying to defend it in the First Amendment context. That said, these provisions are, again, parental opt-in, right? And if they are already operating in a way that is protecting youth by limiting time, for example, by allowing a parent to come in and say you can only be on they're already complying at some level. And so some of these things, I won't call them disingenuous, but I would call them kind of red herrings at some level. And that, frankly, is the entirety of the response that I can provide in that regard. We will not delve into the content that these entities are providing their youth. What we know, back to Assemblyman member Torres Fawcett's question, is that empirical research and that quantitative research and qualitative research have in fact said that if you limit screen time and that if you provide opportunities like these, we can protect the mental health. Our evidence in our own office knows that predation will go down if we're able to affect some of the things that we're talking about, right? And then the privacy components we're talking about, I think, are also as important. So that's my response to your question, Assemblyman Yeager. If I may, to my right is now Chief of Staff Teresa Benitez Thompson, who has something to offer as well.
Thank you so much. Teresa Benitez Thompson, Chief of Staff to Attorney General Ford, through Chair Marzola to Assemblymember Yeager. To answer, thank you so much. Thank you so much. To answer about some of the teen accounts and youth accounts that are being built, the research is still coming out on that. A lot of them are very new. One of the biggest entities out there who set up teen accounts just set those up in September 2024. So just this last fall, there was a Washington Post article, now I think about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that we can share with you where there are studies being conducted to look at the efficacy of those accounts and what's happening with those accounts. A lot of reports are saying that, harmful content is still getting through, and a lot of that's kind of just based on different companies and different companies' policies. One of the things that was we've got a lot of data on this, and we didn't want to turn this into a study thing, but one of the things that was that we talk about. So this was an article from January 7th, 2025, so just this past January, about some of the big platforms. And we're not trying to name specific platforms. We didn't want to do that, but just, in some specific platforms that have guidelines, their guidelines allow for, and this particular company mentioned, quote, "We do allow allegations of mental illness or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation, given political and religious discourse about transgenderism and homosexuality, and common non-serious usages of the word like weird." And so we see that their policies across platforms are going to allow for different types of content, and that's why the Section 19 for parents to decide what I think is appropriate for my child to be exposed to when they go into these social media platforms is going to be that important, because those teen accounts may or may not be effective. They may or may not be working. They may or may not change, right? Over the course of the first year, the companies might change their approach. We want certainty that Section 19 gives us on some of these important features, and we want them in statute.
Committee members, any additional questions? Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you, Chair, and I echo all my colleagues' comments, the courage for you to come here. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I think we all know this is such a huge issue. We're all frightened by it. We want to protect our children. I have grandchildren too now. So it's a frightening world that we have come to, as the speaker also said. And how do we, address all of this? I believe there was a U.S. Surgeon General that said all children should not even have cell phones until they're 16. And I heard that, and I was like, that would be great if we all had the courage as parents and society to make sure that that happened, because I think limiting the use is the big thing, and how do we help parents control it? Kind of along the line with some of my other colleagues' questions, in Section 19, which we touched on, Section 19.3, where we're excluding the interactive video game, and I know we talked on it. I just have great concerns because there's new games, there's new apps, there's new things that come out all the time that it seems like unless we kind of address this as an all or nothing, picking certain areas wouldn't solve the loopholes. So just a question for your consideration there. Thank you.
Mark Kruger, for the record. Thank you, Assemblymember Kasama. When we originally had this bill, we didn't have these particular exclusions in here. And through negotiation, we did provide that just as it goes to certain content that's necessary. And if you look at Section 19, it's the last subsection 3. As used in this section, content does not include any content, material, or other media that is generated by or within an interactive video game which is necessary for the incidental to the use and enjoyment of the interactive video game. So the negotiations were essentially, let's try to get something passed. The video games, the way they operate, allow for this interaction as you're playing the game, as opposed to some of the other platforms where it's a singular interaction yourself. Yes, you can like and things like that. I would note, though, that it only, as to the 2 provisions that talk about content, would it exclude for video, not the other 2 provisions. So that parents would still be able to toggle on and off for the other 2 provisions. So it's negotiation.
Aaron Ford, for the record, if I can offer she just left. I want to offer one more response to Assemblywoman Torres Fawcett. You mentioned Surgeon General Assemblymember Kasama, and it reminded me that, in fact, the Surgeon General has issued a warning on social media. He has, and he has said that he's advocating for warning labels on social media platforms similar to those on tobacco, right? I mean, so there's plenty of research that talks about the concerns and issues. Her question was specifically as to the efficacy of what the solutions we're proposing, but we also think it's important to note the overall problem and indicate as well that we have research that indicates that the proposals that we have here are also sufficient, or at least a step in the right direction.
Assemblymember Urick.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to go on record to say I really don't appreciate the technical answer to my question earlier that seemed like you were skirting the issue a little bit. In particular, with the follow-up with the Chair, my colleague just now, it does sound like in negotiations you were excluding the very company that I was talking about from the protections that this bill affords. And so I just want to just note that for the record. On top of that, I guess hearing Ms. Benitez-Thompson just indicate that in Section 19, there's an effort to offer some parental controls, letting them kind of pick and choose some of these protection measures. Can you give me an idea of why perhaps the timeframes specifically listed in here that some of my other colleagues have brought up are those? Could parents pick maybe different timeframes and stuff? Can you just clarify that for me?
For the record, I'm sorry. I want to be certain I understood what your contention was, Assemblymember Urick. Roblox is not out of this bill. They're not out of this bill. Let me make it quite clear. Roblox, you are not out of this bill. If you thought you are not out of this bill. There may very well have been some contention that they was, I don't know, but I don't lie, and I don't misrepresent. Sitting on this desk, I would not look you in your face and tell you something that I didn't believe was true. Roblox is not out of this bill. They are in this bill, all right? And there is absolutely compromise that has taken place, but none of that has led to the contention that they're out of this bill from my perspective, right? So I just want to clear that up because I felt as though that was an affront toward me, and I needed to be able to address that directly. And we also don't purport to try to give technical answers to skirt questions. Anybody knows me, I'm gonna tell you directly. I'm not skirting anything. I'm going to tell you exactly what the truth is about these issues and speak to it from our perspective. So I'm sorry. I just need to clarify that. The second question you asked, you'll have to remind me. I'm sorry, so I can respond.
The time frame controls that are listed in section 19 here, are those the freedom that parents can pick and choose different time frames outside of this? Is that a possibility for the parents to kind of choose different time frames that work for their kids and their family?
Mark Kruger for the record, and Assemblymember York, I understand the question. There is no restriction on digital platforms from making different timeframes available to parents to decide. The only timeframes that are required by the statute are those that are enumerated in the statute, which are in the proposed legislation, which would be the timeframes during the school year and the evening or night timeframes that they can toggle on and off. The legislation does say that these digital platforms shall, in an effort to make reasonable limitations on timeframes. So it does provide them and encourage them to try to even restrict those timeframes even more under reasonableness standard.
And for the record, also platforms, there are other ways in which parents can currently engage on timeframes, and this does not exclude them from being able to do that, whether it's on the platform level or the phone level or whatever the case may be. This is just what's required under this bill as an option provided to parents.
Committee members, any additional questions? I don't see any. So if you guys can step back for a few minutes. I do want to let everyone know for every single bill that we are hearing in Commerce today, I am limiting testimony. So we will take 30 minutes of support, 30 minutes of opposition, and 30 minutes of neutral. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes in Las Vegas, and 10 minutes over the phone lines. And with that, we will start support testimony of Senate Bill 63. Is there anyone in Carson City? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Hello, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Carissa Pierce, CARISSAPEARCE, and I'm here representing Children's Advocacy Alliance, and we are here in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 63? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of Senate Bill 63, please press *9 now to join the queue. Again, to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 63, please press *9 now.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Deborah Earle, and I am the COO and co-founder of Power to Parents, a nonprofit dedicating to defending parental rights and empowering families. I'm here today in strong support of SB 63, the Nevada Youth Online Safety Act, because it restores what should not be up for debate, a parent's right to protect their child online. We know that social media platforms are engineered to keep users, especially children, engaged. This bill gives parents a way to interrupt addictive and potentially dangerous online habits by allowing them to disable late-night addictive scrolling and autoplay features on their child's account. This bill does not ban platforms, and it doesn't limit free speech. What it does is give parents a vital tool to safeguard their children's mental health, privacy, and time. It allows parents to say, no more notifications at 2 a.m., or my child doesn't need algorithm-driven content that tracks and profiles them. SB 63 recognizes that parents, not tech companies, should decide how and when their children interact with the digital world. It aligns with existing federal law and strengthens parental oversight and introduces much-needed accountability for these platforms. On behalf of thousands of families across Nevada, I urge you to support SB 63. Let's give parents the authority they need to protect kids in the digital age. Thank you so much.
Chair, we have no additional callers in support.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 63. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Chair Marzola and members of the Assembly, Commerce, and Labor Committee, my name is Aiden Downey, AODHANDOWNEY, here on behalf of the Computer and Communication Industry Association. We appreciate the amendments adopted by Attorney General Ford, which reflect an effort to improve Senate Bill 63. However, we still have significant concerns about the bill's overall impact on free expression, access to information, and the potential for unintended consequences. While CCIA strongly supports efforts to enhance online safety and privacy for children, the bill's provision will fail to make young people safer. There are significant concerns about excluding young people from critical support spaces, especially those from underserved or marginalized communities. Additionally, Senate Bill 63 includes vague and subjective language, which has compliance requirements based on what platforms reasonably believe or variable definitions that depend on undefined context. These ambiguities create legal uncertainty and risk arbitrary enforcement. The language also makes it uncertain how a covered entity would have to verify that the parent of a minor either has the person's best interest in mind or could potentially be a bad actor looking to harm the user's experience online. Covered entities will err on the side of caution and unnecessarily place restrictions on accounts that are not the target of the bill. Instead of imposing rigid mandates that may not survive legal scrutiny, CCIA encourages the legislature to support collaborative efforts between industry and policymakers. Many platforms already offer robust tools that allow parents to set time limits, filter content, and protect their children's privacy without denying access to beneficial online communities and resources. A recent study by the Family Online Safety Institute found that more than 4 in 5 households using different types of existing parental controls found them effective in protecting children online. Thank you for considering these comments. CCIA respectfully urge the committee to reconsider SB 63 in its current form and work towards solutions that protect children without undermining constitutional rights or restricting access to the digital world they rely on. Thank you.
Once you're finished, if you can please get up so the next person can. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and committee members. For the record, Jose Torres, that's JOSE-TORRES, Deputy Executive Director with TechNet, the national bipartisan network of technology executives representing over 100 companies. We have been and remain respectfully opposed to SB 63. Children's privacy and security is a priority for our member companies, and they have been at the forefront of raising the standard for teen safety and privacy across our industry by creating new features, settings, protections that are age-appropriate and tailored to the various developmental needs. Our members, for example, use personalized recommendations and algorithmic curation to rank and organize online content into something that's manageable and usable to provide an age-appropriate experience. However, SB 63 would ban the use of algorithmic curations, and it would hinder our ability to provide a safe and age-appropriate experience. With algorithmic curation, not only is content that is helpful or interesting being prioritized, but content that is not age-appropriate is being deprioritized for teen or minor accounts. Preventing personalized recommendations would cause more harm, as companies would be limited in their ability to identify and block content that is not age-appropriate for teen or minor accounts. Additionally, on disabling various settings, we oppose creating a mandated one-size-fits-all approach. This undermines the role of parents in managing their children's online experience. Our companies have rolled out various features and continue to create additional features. They also provide resources such as dedicated websites to help inform and educate parents about the various parental control tools available to them, so that they have the flexibility to make the best decisions for their family's online presence. As such, we appreciate engaging with the Attorney General, but we remain opposed to this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Brian Wachter, Senior Vice President of the Retail Association of NADA. To be very quick, we are looking forward to being able to move off of opposition into neutral on this. We are very encouraged that the Attorney General has looked at other states on online child privacy. We have a couple areas where we think the Virginia language that we had agreed to wasn't carried over 100%. We believe that there is some language that looks like it could be a private right of action in this language that's not included in Virginia. There are a couple accepted exemptions that were found in Virginia that are not included in this language, and there is a definition of consumer device that also wasn't included in the Virginia language. So we are trying to work through that. We understand the time very quickly. We hope to be able to address those issues and move into neutral, but at the moment we are opposed. Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Paul Murat with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber has been consistently opposed to SB 63. We have, of course, met with the Attorney General's office and his staff. We do appreciate a lot of the developments that have occurred with the bill, but unfortunately, we do still have members that do have significant concern. As you know, this organization is the state's largest and broadest, and we're talking about social media and platforms and what that means. We have to see it from a wide angle and what that means for their operations and those intents. So we do appreciate the efforts of the AG to get where we are today, but at this time, the Chamber is still opposed, and we do hope any additional clarification about the Virginia language may remove that opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 63? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 63, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Caller, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today on SB 63. My name is Amy Boss, AMY-BOS, and I'm the Director of State and Federal Affairs at NetChoice. NetChoice shares the laudable goal of protecting Nevada's children online, but we must respectfully urge you to oppose SB 63 as it would undermine both constitutional protections and effective child safety measures already deployed by our industry. Although the amended version removes age verification requirements, which courts have consistently struck down, significant First Amendment violations remain. The algorithmic restrictions, arbitrary time restrictions, and notification prohibitions constitute content-based regulations that trigger strict constitutional scrutiny. Federal courts have consistently struck down similar provisions. Earlier this year in NetChoice versus Bonta, the Ninth Circuit permanently enjoined California's similar law, finding that requiring platforms to modify features for minors likely burden the right to speak anonymously and impose unconstitutional content-based restrictions. Our members have implemented comprehensive safety measures, including robust content moderation, extensive parental controls, and proactive harmful content removal. These voluntary initiatives make significant steps to protecting children while preserving constitutional rights. Again, respectfully urge the committee to reject SB 63. Thank you for your time.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm calling in. This is Nicole Lopez, NICOLE-LOPEZ. I'm going to assume you can.
We can hear you. Go ahead and continue.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry, I have kids in the background, so I just wanted to make sure you could hear me. Chair Marzola, Vice Chair Howard and committee members. My name's Nicole Lopez. I'm a former prosecutor, former head of youth safety policy, and now a director for legal strategy at Meta. I'm also a parent to 2 tweens. This committee should oppose SB 63. While we share the same goal to make online experiences safer for teens, this bill undermines our existing safety efforts and parental controls, and it's likely to be found unconstitutional. At Meta, we're working to make sure that teens have age-appropriate experiences, and we're empowering parents to support their teens online. That's why we launched Teen Accounts in 2024, which recognizes that a teen's online experience should be different from an adult's. How do we do that? We take a teen's personal information to default them into age-appropriate settings like private accounts, messaging restrictions, content restrictions, and content recommendations like local high school soccer videos. We also default teens into 60-minute daily limits and mute notifications at night. Parents can further restrict teens' time by blocking access or muting notifications at certain times. SB 63 would prevent companies from offering these age-specific safety tools and features because they're built on personalization. In fact, Section 18 would only allow personalization to prevent teens from seeing illegal content, but not allow it to prevent teens from seeing content that's perfectly legal, but only meant for adults. Section 19 is equally problematic. Why is it a problem to view 7 pieces of content, but not 6? This arbitrary provision doesn't solve parent concerns around time spent online. That's what parent supervision tools do. Courts have recognized the constitutional issues with laws that selectively single out particular speakers or types of speech. SB 63 only targets a small subset of the many apps that teens use and has continued to add carve-outs in recent weeks, which we heard the committee members address directly. This bill also has an unrealistic effective date. The best path forward is legislation that requires app stores to age verify and get parent consent before teens can download apps. A solution introduced in 19 states and at the federal level.
If you can please wrap up your testimony, your time has ended.
Yep. I'm almost there. It's a solution that's been introduced in 19 states and at the federal level, and you may know this already, recently signed into law in Utah and Texas.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you for the 2 minutes.
Broadcast, is there anyone else on the line?
Yes, Yolanda Kanak, Yolamda, last name Knaak, Chair and committee. Please vote no. And I just want to ditto what everyone else said. Thank you very much. Bye.
Chair, there are no additional callers in opposition.
Thank you. We will move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 6-3, please press *9 now to join the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral.
Thank you. Attorney General, would you like to give any closing remarks? Brief ones?
Yes, ma'am. I won't
Thank
tarry
you.
long at all, I promise. Aaron Ford for the record. Frankly, I appreciate the arguments that they are laying out for me to get ready to defend in court. We disagree clearly that this is an unconstitutional act. You have heard them say we overstep constitutional bounds by limiting free speech of minors or limiting the free speech of other digital platform users that target youth. Can't be further from the truth. This bill, as amended, places reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on how digital platforms have been bombarding our youth with online content that is proving harmful. The final arbiter of any constitutional challenge isn't going to be them or me. It's going to be the courts at the end of the day. And we avoided California for the very reason she mentioned. They lost. We didn't borrow their language. I'll also say that we are not placing unreasonable restrictions on these digital platforms relative to content what the minor can experience because in the Senate we learned that many of these companies, and even today, they already are doing some of these things. So it's not unreasonable for them to be able to continue to comply. For them to claim that covered digital platform is vague, let me be very clear on that point. That's the most fine-tuned provision of this bill. A lot of back and forth to determine who was going to be in, who was going to be out, and the types of things that were necessary to move the bill forward. And frankly, the most incredulous contention is to say that we overburden parents by passing this bill, by pursuing this bill. We are providing parents an opportunity to engage to the extent they want to. And so, if they want to claim that that's a bad move, then guilty as charged. I'll conclude by saying this: social media inspires all kinds of conversations. Policymakers, parents, teachers, we're all weighing in on the harms and benefits of social media use by our children. This Senate bill takes into account research and data on harms while balancing access for kids and gives parents more control to boot. Overall, this bill makes the digital platform safer by requiring digital platforms to enact limits and protections for our youth. Thank you, Chairwoman Marzola.
Thank you, Attorney General, for bringing this bill forward and for being with us this afternoon. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 63. We are going quickly to go back into our work session. We have one bill left. It is Senate Bill 172.
Senate Bill 172 prescribes certain rights for agricultural workers, sponsored by Senator Flores, heard on May 28th, and there are no proposed amendments.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to do pass on Senate Bill 172. So moved. I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there a second? Second. I have a second from Assemblymember Carter. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Please raise your hands. I have a nay from Assemblymember O'Neill, Kasama, Urick, Cole, and Hardy. Motion carries. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Carter. That ends our work session for today. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 165. This measure establishes provisions relating to behavioral health. Good afternoon, Senator Nguyen. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commerce and Labor Committee. I'm very excited to be here. I will try to be brief and hopefully can answer any questions that you might have. And I'm sorry, Rochelle Nguyen for the record, Senate District 3. At the end of last legislative session, I remember I received a call from my city council person, Brian Knudsen, and he asked me if I was willing to come, and it was just across the street at a conference area in a memory care center. He was like, we have some space, we're getting together a bunch of people in the room. He's like, we're working with the Children's Advocacy Alliance. We're going to have Dr. Tara Rains, and she might be on the Zoom I see there to answer any questions and follow up with the presentation as well. Dr. Michelle Paul from UNLV was present there as well. And there were probably about 40 or 50 other practitioners, providers, community advocates, nonprofit organizations, medical and hospital providers, and other people that were sitting in that room. And the whole goal of this consortium of people that got together was to figure out what could we do to have a real impact in our state when it came to children's behavioral and mental health. As we were sitting in there, we were also introduced to the great work at the Balmer Institute that they were doing in Oregon. And in fact, this led to a trip later on in the fall of last year where we had the privilege of going with Senator Lang as well as Assemblymember Monroe Moreno, as well as members from some of these other nonprofits, including Tara Rains, City Councilman Knudsen, and members from NCHI, including UNLV and UNR. We brought these folks out to the University of Oregon to see what they were doing out there. We were able to meet with the teachers and professors and practitioners and the community providers that were involved. This is a very brand new program that they are instituting out there, and we were looking to see what we could do about emulating and seeing what they were doing at a bachelor's level degree program. We were able to meet with students that were starting their second year or their third year, I guess, in college in this program. So in the third and fourth year of college, in addition to classwork, it was like, think about doing like a practical, like residency kind of program for a bachelor's level degree that were embedded in the schools and nonprofit organizations and some of the crisis like stabilization lines for like young kids. And we were able to kind of see what they were doing and the partnering that they were doing with nonprofits and schools to train people. So in addition to coming out with a bachelor's level degree, they actually came out with practical residency style type of like experience to get into the community and be that change. They're essentially creating a new profession, and that is what Senate Bill 165 does. It creates a Nevada-grown new workforce to help tackle our mental and behavioral health crisis, especially focusing on children's mental health. It creates a bachelor's level degree program with appropriations to UNLV, go Rebels, UNR, and also Great Basin. It also creates a new license and allows for new opportunities for people to actually bill for these services once they come out with this career path. This bill also creates a psychology internship program. Think of a psychology residency program. Currently, we had 7 graduates from our PhD program at UNLV, for example, and all 7 of those graduates had to leave the state of Nevada because there are no internship programs. So those of you, or a lot of you are familiar with like graduate medical education or residency programs for doctors. But in order to be a psychologist, you have to also, or have that psychology degree and be able to do that, you have to do an internship program. And in order to have an internship program, you have to have an accredited program, which means that you need to fund 3 of those positions. We do not have a program. We have no internship potential here at all. So we are training Nevadans to not only, they have no other option, they have to leave our state. And so this would create this program, just like support for medical residencies, this would create an accredited program to at least ensure that we are keeping at least 3 of those interns here in our state, allowing them to work and train here and stay here in our state. I could go on and on about this bill. There are certain things, like I said, at the end of the day, it is creating this new licensed behavioral health and wellness practitioner. It creates a licensing avenue for them to become licensed and to further define that scope of practice. And it also allocates those resources to our universities to be able to create the program that is going to create this workforce. And I have Dr. Rains on there. I think she has a few words, if the chair is okay with that, to present about her work in this area. And we would not be sitting here today without all of the great work that she's done in this area. So I'll turn it over to her with your permission.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Tara Rains for the record. Thank you, Senator Nguyen, for bringing this very important bill forward. We see this as a way to really tackle the workforce shortages we have in Nevada in regards to children's mental health. You know, there's the analogy of the folks who are walking through the forest and they come on the river and they see babies in the river and they start taking them out. And what we're able to do now with our limited children's mental health workforce is take some of the babies out of the river. These behavioral health and wellness practitioners allow us to go upstream and see why the kids are falling in the river, right? It allows us to do that prevention-oriented work, to do that early intervention work so that we don't have as many youth needing the high impact, the more expensive, the more involved mental health treatment later on down the line. And in regards to what the senator said about children's child psychology internships in Nevada, we are as she highlighted, hemorrhaging our students. We train them here. We're excited to have them here, and they have to go to other states to finish their internship, to finish their degree with a specialty in children. And we hope that they come back, but we know that many of them don't. And we know that folks tend to stay where they intern, where they get licensed. And so seeing that as another avenue for growing our children's mental health workforce. The bachelor's level work is being done across the world. It's been done in the UK with incredible outcomes for reducing the number of people who have severe mental health disorders. And so we see this as a natural path and a natural way to really move the needle here in Nevada and support our children and families. And I'm here for questions if anyone has any specifics. Thank you.
Rochelle Nguyen for the record. I do have one further thing to highlight, which I found kind of this statistic was very impactful for me, I guess, and hopefully it will be for this committee as well. We heard that there were approximately, I think, 4,000 bachelor level degree graduates in psychology at UNLV, to give an example. It's obviously a very popular degree. If we could divert even 100 of those or half of them or any of that, that is increasing a new workforce that would be trained and able to go out and do this kind of behavioral health and wellness preventative type work in our communities sooner rather than later. So it has some potential for real results very quickly. And so that was something that was really impactful. When we talk about nursing programs and opening up 20 extra slots or opening up 3 more medical residencies, this gives us the possibility of producing thousands of new employees that can go into the field and work in this area. And we are ready for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Senator, for being with us and for bringing this bill. I'm all about keeping our students here. Yes. So with that, committee members, are there any questions? Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you so much for bringing this bill. Anytime we can get more healthcare providers here, we need it in any discipline. Could you just clarify? I was kind of looking where the initial funding will come from this, and where you see the continued stream of funding will come from.
Thank you. Rochelle Nguyen for the record. And currently, the way that this is funded is in part by the way of the provider tax, like the hospital provider tax. That provider tax money is limited in scope for the types of programming that it could do. Because right now, as this is currently drafted, it does not include private insurance mandates. It is mostly just a Medicaid potential like avenue. We would be able to utilize those Medicaid costs with that provider fee. It will take some time to develop, obviously, that license process and where we're able to get those students in. Ideally, honestly, you know, we talked about this. I know Assemblymember Monroe Moreno knows that we had these conversations. When we saw what they were doing in Oregon, they still don't have a way to license these students that are going to graduate next year. So they are going to graduate next year and they won't have like the possibility to have these jobs. And so if we're able to move on this quickly and pass Senate Bill 165 and get these regulations and this new licensing process in place, we could conceivably take all of their graduates while we're growing our own graduates. So I teased Oregon. I was like, I'm glad that you're training these people because you're going to be able to bring them over to our state because we're going to have a job for them. So you know, that is what we kind of look forward to. In addition to that, we were able to use quite a bit of opioid funds. There's such a correlation between mental health, children's mental health in particular, and the opioid epidemic. And so we have been able to qualify and utilize those funds to get this program started in this area. We unfortunately have done little to nothing in the area of significance in the area of children's mental and behavioral health, and I think this puts us in a right step. Ideally, I would like to be in a situation where this is so successful that NSHE ends up taking this on and they're able to realize that creating this degree program throughout various different like educational institutions of higher learning will be a successful way for them to, they'll be successful and students will want to be in this degree program.
Any additional questions? I don't see any. If you want to step back. We will start with support testimony of Senate Bill 165. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in support? Remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. For the record, Patricia Charlton, Chancellor, Nevada System of Higher Education, and we appreciate the sponsor for this bill and for the dedication and commitment to mental health for our community, for our children, and she stands in support of this bill.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. For the record, Leonardo Benavides here on behalf of UNLV, also talking on behalf of Dr. Michelle Paul and the UNLV practice, here in support of SB 165. I won't belabor the statistics that we have in mental health shortages in Nevada, but just a little bit about the UNLV practice and their work. The UNLV practice is ready to act now because the Interim Finance Committee, back on August of 2024, approved funding from the Fund for Resilient Nevada to support UNLV in launching a new doctoral program, the specialization in child and adolescent psychology. The practice is home to a fully operational teaching, training, and research clinic that already serves a critical hub for integrated interprofessional behavioral health training. The clinic has the documented infrastructure, faculty, and expertise and clinical program needed to launch this high-quality accredited internship program quickly and responsibly. With this funding, the practice will be ready to finalize program infrastructure, pursue full accreditation, and recruit the first cohort during the 2025-26 match cycle to launch the program in July of 26. As the first accredited child psychology internship in Nevada, the internship will help retain talent in Nevada, strengthen our behavioral health pipeline, expand access to specialty service for youth and families, and reduce long-term workforce gaps with an immediate scalable solution. This is not a conceptual initiative. It is a shovel-ready solution. The UNLV practice stands prepared to launch, recruit, and train the next generation psychologists where Nevada needs the most. This legislative investment now will help ensure that the first cohort is in place and serving Nevada families by July 2026. And then finally, I'd just like to thank Senators Rochelle Wynn, Councilman Brian Knutson for their leadership on this project, as well as Assembly members Monroe Moreno and Senator Lang as well on that trip. And it's been a pleasure working along our colleagues at UNR, Great Basin, and NSHE as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. Sheila Bray from the University of Nevada, Reno. We too are in full support and will echo
UNLV's comments in terms of just thanks to everybody for their help in working on this. And thanks to Senator Nguyen and Dr. Tara Raines for bringing us in at the very beginning of this. And we really think this is an innovative idea, really to spread out amongst the NC institutions on where we can really help this pipeline most. So thank you. We are in support.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Musgrove with Strategies 360, and I am here as the Vice Chair of the Clark County Children's Mental Health Consortium. I had the honor of joining with Dr. Raines and a number of the folks that worked on this, attending a few meetings and super supportive. This is such an important thing to have folks come to our state or keep them in our state that can work for our kids and families. So thank you. I'm very supportive.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm here today for my client, Moms Rising Together. We are here in support of the bill and would urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, Bradley Mayer, today of Argenta Partners representing Raise the Future. Raise the Future is an adoption nonprofit that works with the hardest to place foster youth by partnering with state and local governments. And so many of our kids have mental behavioral challenges. This is a great workforce bill to help create a pipeline of professionals that can especially focus on a prevention-oriented workforce as well to help our kids. Ditto what everybody else said, and really appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 165? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
To testify in support for Senate Bill 165, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public lines are open and working. We have no callers choosing to testify in support.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 165, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers for opposition at this time.
Thank you. We will move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas? Good afternoon, ma'am. Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Linda Buckhart, LindaBuckardt. I'm a former teacher, and I have more questions about this than anything. You know, we never needed mental health before COVID. Is this necessary to just create jobs? Should we change the Common Core curriculum, which is teaching our children how to think and feel? Behavior health is taught. Yet it mentions opioid addiction. So as a master teacher, we had a program that taught kids the effects of drug use. It was called the DARE program. However, we found that more kids started to use it. And those are just my comments, and thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
To testify in neutral to Senate Bill 165, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers for neutral.
Thank you. Senator, would you like to give any closing remarks? I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 165. I am going to take the bills slightly out of order. I will open a hearing on Senate Bill 380. So I am again going to take it. I will open a hearing on Senate Bill 389, which revises provisions relating to the administration of pharmacy benefits under Medicaid and certain other health plans. Welcome, Senator. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much. My name is Melanie Scheibel. I'm the state senator for District 9, and I did not cut the majority leader in line. She has other business to attend to, and will be back to present her also incredible bill after I am finished. And in the meantime, I will tell you a little bit about SB 389. Essentially what SB 389 does is it moves our Nevada Medicaid from the multiple PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers that they currently utilize, to a single PBM. It's a highly technical bill. It has been amended numerous times to get it to this place. And so I hope you will allow me to phone a friend when it comes time to answer questions for you. This has also already been through both a policy committee and a money committee on the other side. And while there are initial startup costs to implement the bill and move us from the multiple PBMs that we currently use to a single PBM going forward, ultimately this is a cost-saving measure. And even though this is not a money committee, this is part of the policy. Part of the policy is to save the state money by bringing us onto a single PBM and reducing drug prices for everybody throughout the system. Because when Medicaid moves to a single PBM, they'll be able to more effectively negotiate with drug manufacturers and streamline not the reimbursement process, but the pricing process for pharmacists who dispense these medications. Because right now, a pharmacist who works at your local CVS or Smith's or a family pharmacist might have 100 patients on Medicaid who have each of the 5 different PBMs. And so even though they're dispensing the same medication to those 100 patients, they have to bill them differently for each one because they've been negotiated to a different price. This would allow us to charge everybody the same price for the same drug. And I would be happy to phone my friend to answer any questions if that's okay. That's it. That's all I got.
I didn't realize she was here in person in Carson City, so welcome. You ready for questions?
Yes, thank you.
Committee members, are there any questions? Assemblymember Hardy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this. Having worked a little bit on prescription drug policy before, it is very complicated in the PBMs and all of that. So I think this is a good idea. So my question just basically is this PBM already existing and you're just gonna like move them all to the one, or is it something that has to be developed? And that's why this the date's 2030?
Good morning, afternoon. Yep, sorry. Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Dr. Keiko Duncan, Division of Healthcare Finance and Policy, Pharmacy Director. It is not currently existing. We would have to go through the state's procurement process, and the bill itself details specifics and transparency pieces that the contract would have to include that their PBMs would need to bid on.
Any additional questions? I don't see any. Run while you can. God bless you. We will start with support testimony of Senate Bill 389. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in support? You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, KB Mejia, K-E-I-P-I-M-E-J-I-A. I'm the policy analyst at the Ferrado Company, here today on behalf of the Nevada Society for Dermatology and Dermatologic Surgery. In support, we'd like to thank the sponsor and urge your support. Thanks.
Madam Chair, excuse me, Dan Musgrove. Today on this hearing for Prime Therapeutics, we actually are serving right now as the state's PBA for the fee-for-service Medicaid population. We like to call ourselves a PBA because our true role is to be the administrator of this program for the state. Our job is not to share in the profits of rebates or pricing. Our job is to get that and share it with the state so that the state makes the money on this and can put it back into the program to help all of our constituents. And so that reason, this is something that's been happening in states around. We strictly focus on helping states in this regard and are supportive of this going forward.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. Liz McMenamin, Retail Association in Nevada. I am here in strong support of Senator Scheibel's bill and appreciate her doing the work on bringing this forward. PBMs are a real problem in our state and in the nation, and I think that reform is we're very slow to getting to the table to enacting some of this reform, but I appreciate this session being really concentrating on seeing what's best for the patients in Nevada. So I appreciate the time and thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 389, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Chair, we have no callers in support.
Thank you. We'll move to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 389. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 389, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Chair, we have no callers for opposition testimony.
We will move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral of Senate Bill 389? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 389, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Chair, we have no callers for neutral.
Thank you. Senator, would you like to give? I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 389. I'm going to do 317. Oh, I will now open a hearing on Senate. I will now open a hearing on Senate Bill 217. This measure makes revisions relating to reproductive health care. Welcome, Majority Leader. You may begin when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nicole Cannizzaro. I proudly represent Senate District 6 in the northwest portion of the Las Vegas Valley and serve as your Senate Majority Leader here in the Nevada Legislature. And I am extremely proud to bring to you today Senate Bill 217. I am joined, Madam Chair, down in Las Vegas by Amanda Klein, who I would like to turn the presentation over to once I've been able to make a few remarks and walk you all through the various portions of Senate Bill 217. So this particular bill revises certain provisions relating to reproductive health care and really relates to how it is that we are giving opportunities to so many Nevadans to experience parenthood. Parenthood is a deeply meaningful and life-changing experience for many individuals and couples, and the ability to bring a family into this world and to build one is not only a personal milestone, but also a fundamental aspect of human connection, providing love, stability, and a sense of purpose for so many. However, for millions of people and so many Nevadans, they are facing infertility or other barriers to conception, and that dream of parenthood can feel out of reach. In the United States, infertility affects a significant portion of the population. Nearly 10 million women aged 15 to 45 experience impaired fecundity, indicating difficulties in getting pregnant or carrying a pregnancy to term. Among married women aged 15 to 49, 8.5%, or approximately 2.4 million, are infertile, meaning that they have been unable to conceive after at least 12 consecutive months of unprotected sexual intercourse. About 9% of men and 11% of women of reproductive age have experienced fertility problems. Advancements in reproductive medicine, including in vitro fertilization, commonly referred to as IVF, and other forms of assisted reproductive technology, or ART, have transformed the way that individuals and couples achieve this dream. These treatments provide hope and opportunity for those struggling with infertility, same-sex couples seeking biological parenthood, individuals with medical conditions that affect fertility, and those who choose to conceive later in life. Although often successful, these treatments can also be very costly and often serve as the biggest barrier to fertility preservation. Insurance coverage for these services varies depending on the insurance plan, state, and other individual circumstances. For example, California, Massachusetts, and New York have enacted legislation requiring certain health insurance plans to cover IVF. In other cases, some health insurance plans may cover a specific number of assisted reproductive cycles or have a maximum amount that they will cover. Without coverage for these treatments, however, many survivors may not have the opportunity to become parents of a biological child. So, for a brief walkthrough of the bill, we'll begin with sections 2 through 6, which define certain terms relating to assisted reproduction. Section 7 provides that the provisions of this bill apply to all state and local laws and ordinances, regardless of when they were enacted. Section 7 also prohibits government entities from restricting access to assisted reproduction, healthcare providers' ability to offer related services, insurance coverage, or individuals' control over their own reproductive genetic material. Section 8 strengthens these protections by prohibiting governmental limitations that specifically target and substantially burden assisted reproduction related to drugs or devices or healthcare providers offering these services. Section 8 also grants individuals, healthcare providers, and insurers the right to challenge such burdens in court, and additionally authorizes the Attorney General's office to intervene against unlawful restrictions on assisted reproduction. Section 9 provides important legal protections for individuals and entities involved in assisted reproduction. And following the Alabama Supreme Court's February 2024 ruling, the liability concerns for clinics were far-reaching, and in the absence of the Alabama legislature's swift action, could have severely limited the ability of clinics in Alabama to continue providing services to their patients. Therefore, Section 9 ensures that no person or organization can face civil or criminal liability, disciplinary actions, or administrative sanctions solely for providing or receiving goods or services related to assisted reproduction. This protection also extends to those storing or transporting embryos and manufacturers of reproductive-related goods, shielding them from liability in cases of embryo damage or loss. However, it is important to note that these protections do not apply in cases of negligence, criminal activity, or actions that fall outside the provider's scope of practice, training, or expertise. Section 10 provides that a fertilized egg or human embryo that exists before implantation in the uterus of a human body is not considered a human being for any purpose under Nevada law. Sections 12, 13, 15, 20, 24, 27 through 29, 32, 36, 38, 42, and 45 require certain health insurers, including some private employers who provide insurance to their employees, to provide a special enrollment period to a person determined by a qualified health provider to be pregnant. During this period, the pregnant person must be allowed to enroll in a health care plan outside of the period of open enrollment. Sections 12 through 14, 23, 31, 37, 38, and 44 require certain health care plans to provide coverage, and sections 12 through 14, 19, 23, 31, 37, 38, and 44 prohibit an insurer from imposing conditions, including cost sharing, prior authorizations, and waiting periods on fertility treatment or fertility preservation if such conditions are not required for similar benefits that are not related to fertility. Section 16 exempts small employers, association health plans, and employers who provide benefits for health care for their employees through a self-insured plan from these requirements. Section 41 authorizes the Commissioner of Insurance to suspend or revoke the certificate of a health maintenance organization that fails to provide the coverage required by Section 37. The Commissioner is also authorized to take such action against other health insurers who fail to provide the coverage required by Sections 23 and 44. And so with that, Madam Chair, I would like to turn the presentation over to Amanda Klein down in Las Vegas, who will provide some additional information and has been working on this issue for a very long time and will be able to provide, I think, some helpful information to the members of the committee.
Thank you, Chair Marzola and members of the committee for allowing me to share my story today. For the record, my name is Amanda Klein, and I am the founder of Nevada Fertility Advocates. 3 miscarriages, 2 medically necessary abortions, multiple tests, hundreds of needles, 2 rounds of IVF, 5 doctors, 1 surrogate, and 6 figures. This is what it took to bring our beautiful daughter into the world. Would I do it again? Absolutely, in a heartbeat, without a second thought. However, there are so many ways that this journey could and should have been easier for people like me and my husband. 1 in 6 Nevadans struggle with the disease of infertility. The American Medical Association has recognized infertility as a disease for decades, just like cancer, diabetes, or heart disease. 85% of Americans are supportive of IVF, and yet there is still a stigma that remains. The result, we don't talk about our infertility journeys. It's too raw, too personal, and too painful. But we need to speak up. We need employers to understand how hard it is to go back to work the day after having a miscarriage. We need our families and friends to be aware of what we are going through and to be sensitive to our plight. And most importantly, we need our lawmakers to understand how big of an issue this truly is and to act on our behalf. I support with all my heart SB 217. Fertility treatment needs to be affordable. It needs to be accessible. Infertility needs to be treated like any other disease and recognized by insurance companies as a covered benefit. Employers need to offer fertility benefits to appropriately care for their workforce. This is good for our economy and the overall health of our communities. IVF must be protected and not politicized or vilified. Doctors should be able to care for their patients without fear of retribution. Intended parents should be able to grow their family in the way that they see fit without going into significant debt. My husband and I have successful careers, but even with 2 good salaries, we could not afford IVF and surrogacy on our own. My father had to sell his house and give us all of the proceeds from the sale. My in-laws had to dip into their life savings. Every dollar we made went to paying them back. We are very fortunate to have a support system with these kinds of resources, but most people cannot build their families this way. Contrary to popular belief, infertility is not just a women's issue. It affects men just as much. There is female factor infertility, male factor infertility, and many situations where both male and female factors are at play. We spend our entire adult lives trying not to get pregnant, that when we are finally ready to start a family and find out we cannot, that reality is hard to grasp. If you cannot conceive naturally or are having a hard time getting pregnant, it is not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not damaged and you are not broken. Trust me, this is the narrative in every person's head when going through this journey. Limiting access to IVF and other treatment modalities strips couples and single people who want to be parents of having a child that is genetically theirs. I have heard it all throughout the years. Why don't you just adopt? Why don't you foster? Do you really need to be a parent to have a happy life? These questions, while well-intended, are like a dagger to the heart for someone going through infertility. None of these family building paths are easy. Society is essentially saying that unless you are wealthy, you do not deserve a child that is genetically yours. And that is wrong. In 2020, I founded Nevada Fertility Advocates. We are a volunteer-based organization that supports the 1 in 6 Nevadans who struggle with the disease of infertility. We do this through community awareness, employer education, and advocacy. I am honored to work with the Majority Leader as she fights for women and families and ask that all members of the Assembly join us in this fight. This bill is about fighting for families and access to high-quality, affordable health care. Family building should not be a partisan issue. Currently, 22 other states have some form of infertility coverage. Nevada should be next. I honestly don't know what I would do without my daughter. She is the light of my life and the reason I fight. All I want for her is a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And obviously, I, again, am extremely grateful to Ms. Klein for being so willing to come in and give testimony and share her experience. And these sorts of things are so incredibly difficult. And I think that all too often we do not talk about how incredibly impactful these decisions can be and some of the obstacles that exist along the way. And so we assume that this is not an issue, but it is something that people face on a regular basis, and so many Nevadans do. And without some kind of resources to be able to not only provide the right protections in law to ensure access to IVF and to ART, but then also to provide some ability for folks to access that, we really are shutting the door and turning a blind eye to this issue that truly is, I think, painful and very tough. And so if we can provide a little bit of hope to families who are struggling, then I think it is worth it. And that is the whole purpose of Senate Bill 217, to provide the right protections and to ensure access. And with that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'd be happy to take any questions that you or the members of the committee may have.
Thank you for your presentation, Majority Leader, and thank you so much, Ms. Klein, for being here with us today and also talking to us about your experience. I know it's tough. Committee members, are there any questions? There are no questions. Will you take that? We will start with support testimony of Senate Bill 217. We will start in Carson City. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the Assembly Commerce and Labor Committee. My name is Jacqueline Nguyen, Nguyen, and I represent the Nevada State Medical Association. I'm also a very proud mom of 3 children who we are blessed to have after a 7-year IVF journey. We are in strong support of SB 217. IVF provides a critical medical solution for individuals and couples facing infertility. And IVF often includes advanced testing, which can help identify serious genetic conditions before pregnancy, and this earlier identification can lower maternal and neonatal health risks. SB 217 also improves healthcare access by increasing insurance coverage for infertility treatments and preservation, an essential step towards equity in reproductive care. We are very thankful and in full support of this bill and thank the Majority Leader for bringing this forth. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am Sarah Adler, again before you representing the Nevada section of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So as you have heard, SB 217 creates a comprehensive policy inclusive of important definitions and protections that are needed for OBGYNs and other providers, especially post the Alabama ruling. SB 217 can bring the joy of parenthood that is desperately wanted to many more Nevada families, not only those who have high incomes or families who can afford to assist them. ACOG requests your support for this measure in the strongest terms possible and thanks the sponsor for her continuous championship of reproductive care and rights in our state. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola, members of Assembly Commerce and Labor. My name is Annie Vong, A-N-N-I-E-V as in Victor, O-N-G. I'm here on behalf of Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and Nevada Public Health Association, and both groups support this bill. Thank you.
Joanna Tiveros with Care Nevada on behalf of the Henderson Chambers of Commerce. The Henderson Chambers would like to express our support to SB 217. We thank the Majority Leader Canizaro for her leadership and collaboration in working with us to craft an amendment that addresses the needs of Nevada's small business regarding association health plans. We appreciate the opportunity to provide this testimony and urge your support on this bill. And on a side note, on a personal note, My doctor told me that the only way I'll probably have to do or be able to get pregnant one day is through IVF. This doesn't just affect a certain class of women, it affects everyone. So we do urge your support. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Mo Dennis, for the record, representing Americans for Contraception. We are in support of this bill and urge support. I am grateful to the Majority Leader to bring this forth. On a personal note, I have the most amazing grandson who was conceived through IVF and through, I know the struggles that my daughter and my son-in-law went through, and it was a challenge financially for them, but after, I think it took them about 10 years, and that's a long time, but he is the most amazing grandson, and we are grateful for this medical procedure that can help families and urge support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Lopez, and I'm here today in my personal capacity to express strong support for SB 217. Infertility is one of the most isolating and heartbreaking experiences I have ever felt. It felt like living under a cloud, one that never lifted. Each month brought more disappointment, more tears, and more questions about whether I would ever experience the joys of motherhood. On top of the emotional toll, there was a devastating financial one. My husband and I lived paycheck to paycheck, pulled from modest savings accounts, and paid out of pocket every step of the way. Appointments, tests, and medications. One round of IVF costs $20,000, and in total, we spent $25,000 just to conceive our son. Our insurance covered none of it. Not the medications, not the blood work, and not even the doctor's visits. That kind of sacrifice just isn't possible for families. And yet, through the grace of God and the miracle of science, we conceived. That was the moment the sun came out. And years of praying and scraping together money, that positive test was more than a medical result. It was hope made real. Today, I know the joy of motherhood. We are proud parents to RJ Guerrier Lopez, a rising sixth grader, straight A student, black belt in Taekwondo, and the current UNLV Clark County Strong Start Youth Mayor. And per the youth mayor, he'd want me to add that he really enjoys art and soccer. SB 217 would ease the burden for others who just want a chance to build a family. It represents equity, dignity, and the fundamental right to pursue parenthood. It also ensures that cancer patients can protect their fertility and medical decisions stay where they belong, between a doctor and patients. Nevada has the chance to lead with compassion and fairness. Don't let the cost be the barrier that keeps someone from experiencing the joys of parenthood.
Mrs. Lopez, if you can please wrap up your
support
testimony.
SB 217.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Chair and committee members. My name is Madison Proctor, MADDISON, PROCTOR. I'm here on behalf of Nevada Women's Lobby, and we are just ditto everything. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. I do see you seated in Las Vegas, so you may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Leah Kay, Leahkaye, and I'm a reproductive endocrinologist and infertility specialist at the Fertility Center of Las Vegas. I represent the 2 other doctors who work with me, and I'm one clinic among the 6 in the state of Nevada that provide infertility care. You'll hear and have heard very moving stories of how this treatment, which is safe and highly effective, helps families in Nevada. So I'll give you some numbers instead. An approximate 70,000 women of reproductive age in the state of Nevada will be affected by infertility. 12% plus of men will be. There are countless servicemen and servicewomen who choose to give the best reproductive lives, or the best part of their reproductive lives, to help our families, and then they have so much trouble building their own when they come back. There is an entire community of LGBTQ people who require these medical treatments to grow their families, and all of them are being excluded. Many of the patients that I see have insurance coverage, but their insurance is discriminating against their diagnosis, and I believe that that is unfair. Last year in 2024, we saw about 1,000 new patient consults, and probably half of them even showed back up to do diagnostic testing, which means that the other half have infertility based on their history, but don't even pursue testing to figure out what's going on and to therefore provide treatments. It's shameful. These are hardworking Nevadans. These are people who just want to grow their families, and they see everybody around them doing it. It's something that affects 1 in 6 couples. It's something that affects somebody that everybody in this room knows, and it's shameful that we can't provide this service. What I see on my end is patients come, find out they need IVF, and they go to other states or other countries to seek suboptimal care when we have some of the best IVF providers here in the state of Nevada. They come back to us, $100,000 in debt, and now at the beginning of the journey again because it didn't work when they went to Mexico or wherever else.
Ma'am.
The other thing I see is I'm
Ma'am,
sorry.
if you can please wrap up your testimony, your time has ended.
Absolutely. I urge your support for Senate Bill 217.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for this opportunity to support 217 and my testimony. My name is Elizabeth Lopez, ELIZABETHLOPEZ, and I'm here today in my personal capacity and as a woman who has walked the deep personal, emotional, and often invisible journey of infertility. I truly believed I was doing everything right, pursuing my dreams, building a meaningful career in public service, working to uplift our communities, becoming the first in my family to graduate from college, and even going back for my MBA. I was waiting for the right partner, the right time, trying to build a strong foundation before starting a family. But time doesn't wait, and infertility doesn't care how prepared you are or how hard you worked. And like so many others in Nevada in a similar situation, I always dreamed of becoming a mother and having a family one day. So I decided to try and do it on my own. But what I didn't expect was how hard, expensive, and emotionally draining that this path would be. I've experienced heartbreak of failed cycles, miscarriage, the isolation of not being able to talk about it openly until today, and the overwhelming cost that puts this dream out of reach. The financial strain is real. The emotional toll is even greater. There were days I showed up to work with a brave face, even though I was grieving and failed another attempt. SB 217 would give families a fighting chance. It would provide the insurance coverage that recognizes infertility as a legitimate medical condition and provide opportunities for others who want to become a single parent by choice or with a particular partner. This bill gives hope, it gives fairness, and most importantly, it gives access to people who may otherwise be priced out of their dream to have a family. I urge you, please vote yes on SB 217. Let Nevada lead with compassion, equity, and family first values. Thank you so much for this time and considering this national and statewide issue.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Atlas, ATLAS, with the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, the nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy arm of the American Cancer Society. We are in strong support of SB 217 and urge your support to ensure that Nevadans facing cancer have access to the full spectrum of care, including the ability to make decisions about their reproductive future. We thank the Majority Leader Canizaro for bringing this bill and continuing to be a champion for Nevada's families.
Good afternoon, Chair Canizaro and committee members. My name is Linda Buckart, LINDA-BUCKARDT, and I would like to support this bill. I have many friends who have gone through infertility issues, and I really can relate to these women who have had problems. I fortunately did not have the problem, but it is, when you abort, it's a death. It is a death that a person wasn't alive in front of inside of you. I'm glad to hear that you're pro-life, and I urge that we change our way of funding this. We taxpayers pay for abortions, even to those who are from other states. We could tunnel those funds or change those funds to a different.
Ma'am, are you supporting the bill? Because if you support the bill, you have
I am in support, ma'am.
Okay, then you have to support it in its entirety.
Okay, and I would
you.
like to see you fund this. Thank you.
Thank you for your support testimony.
Chair, members of the committee, Samantha Barnes, BARNES. On behalf of Comprehensive Cancer Centers of Nevada, we wanted to thank the Majority Leader for bringing this important piece of legislation forward, and we are here today in full support. And on a personal note, as a proud mom of a little 8-month-old girl who I did suffer a miscarriage the first time, I fully support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 217, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Again, to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 217, please press star 9 to join the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jenny Stepp, JENNY-STEPP, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in private practice in Las Vegas. I specialize in trauma and PTSD, mood, and anxiety disorders. I also serve as the Healthcare Action Team Chair for the Nevada chapter of the National Organization for Women. I'm calling today with my enthusiastic support of Senate Bill 217 because I see firsthand the devastating physical, emotional, psychological, and relational impact of infertility on my clients and healthcare providers in our community. Infertility is a recognized medical condition that has substantial consequences for people facing this condition. Senate Bill 217 would go a long way to support individuals, families, and healthcare providers facing this challenging problem. By expanding access to services and treatments, Senate Bill 217 promotes health equity, especially for those undergoing cancer treatment, LGBTQ+ families, and lower-income individuals who often face coverage gaps. Secondly, this bill establishes clear legal protections for individuals seeking assisted reproduction services and ensures reproductive freedom is legally safeguarded in Nevada, which is something Nevadans have unequivocally voted to support in recent elections. Lastly, this bill fosters a more supportive and secure environment for healthcare providers, clinics, labs, and biotech companies involved in reproductive care, which encourages participation in and expansion of fertility services and promotes innovation in service delivery by reducing legal ambiguity. All of these issues would support growth and expansion in Nevada's healthcare industry, which is something Governor Lombardo has prioritized in his executive agenda. For these reasons, I urge you to vote yes on SB 217. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Bree Schmidt, BRISCHMIDT, and I'm a program associate with Silver State Equality, Nevada's statewide LGBTQ+ civil rights organization. All Nevadans deserve access to health care for both themselves and their families. SB 217's protections of assisted reproduction helps protect all Nevadans. We support SB 217 and urge you to support this as well, and ditto to the other callers. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Marzola, for letting us speak today. My name is Kendall Servino, Kendahl, last name Scrvino. I speak on behalf as a board member of the Nevada Fertility Advocates and as a pediatric assistant physician here to tell my story today. Prior to starting chemotherapy, I was asked whether I wanted to be a mother one day. Having just received a life-altering diagnosis of cancer 1 week prior, my potential for motherhood had not been on my mind. Now with the more pressing acute matters of attending hair loss, whether I would need to check from college, and of course, whether I would even live. I was 20 years old at the time. So much of one's life course is altered immediately after the words, "you have cancer." And for me, this included my decision to spend my career advocating for children as a pediatric physician. Chemotherapy alone has a plethora of side effects, but one often overlooked and unaware side effect is that of iatrogenic infertility, or infertility caused by chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or any other toxic treatments that may render someone medically infertile. For myself, this placed a huge burden, both financially and emotionally, in my family, on top of an already devastating diagnosis. In most states, these services are considered elective and not covered by insurance. And so this caused undue stress during a time where I was already going through chemotherapy, medical school applications, and at the time also the pandemic. For cancer patients, sometimes all we want is to retain as much normalcy as we can to have a sense of a healthy, promising future. And for those of us who want it, our future should include the possibility to have future families. Cancer already takes so much away from us. It does need to take this away from us too. I'm honored and excited to work with Senate Majority Leader Nicole Canizaro again as we persevere in this fight to once again take up this journey in the legislative session. I strongly support SB 217 and urge everyone else to do the same. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jen Peterson, JenniFerpeterson. My husband and I were both faced with infertility problems and had to do IVF in order to grow our family. We are both self-employed and our insurance didn't cover the testing and treatment that we needed. The high cost of fertility treatments added to the stress and difficulty that we faced. We are one of the couples who had to leave the country to be able to afford IVF. I have PTSD from my experience and went through bouts of depression and increased anxiety as a result of 7 IVFs that I endured. Treatment and our many losses affected my ability to work. I ended up quitting my 17-year career to go back to school to become a therapist for people going through infertility. And I can attest to the fact that every single person I see laments the high cost of testing and treatment. An infertility diagnosis and year of treatment causes the same amount of trauma as a breast cancer diagnosis and a year of treatment. The use of assisted reproductive technologies is increasing at a rate of 5 to 10% per year. This is a disease that isn't going away. And having a family shouldn't be reserved only for the people who can afford to pay tens of to hundreds of thousands of dollars just for the chance to have a baby. Learning you're facing infertility is traumatic and filled with grief. Please support Nevadans who desperately want to become parents and support SB 217. Thank you. Hi, my name is Cindy Flores, C-Y-N-D-Y, Flores, F-L-O-R-E-S, and I'm joined today by my almost 10-week daughter, Violet, who is my miracle IVF baby. I probably cry through this. We've spent, for the last 3 years, we've spent tens of thousands of dollars to bring sweet Violet into the world. But more than the money, it was the heartbreak and the difficulties of going through infertility. Infertility takes the joy out of trying to grow your family, but just takes the joy out of your life. And Violet has brought that joy back. Sorry. I am calling in support of this bill, not just the financial aspects, but also the legal protections that this bill brings forth. In last February, when the Alabama ruling came down, I was at an IVF clinic waiting for my appointment for an ultrasound to see how many eggs were growing. That one of them became baby Violet. But to be in the clinic and be like, oh, what does this mean for the country? Because eventually this will affect everybody, not just the women and the families in Alabama. So to see this bill address some of these issues that hopefully one day won't be an issue, but to know that in Nevada that our rights as parents and as women going through infertility treatments and going through IVF are protected, that our
our embryos and our future potential children are protected, that the brave doctors and the incredible doctors and healthcare professionals who provide IVF treatment are also going to be protected from people with a political agenda to take away this really important medical procedure, medical process to bring joy back into our lives.
If you can please wrap up your testimony.
Really important. Yes, sorry. So please vote yes in support of this bill because it does affect so many Nevada families.
Thank you for your support testimony. That is the last caller that we will be taking due to time. Anyone that is still sitting on the phone for support testimony, if you can please submit your testimony in writing, and we will make sure the entire committee gets it. And with that, we will move to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 217. Is there anyone in Carson City? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You each have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Melissa Clement, MELISSACLEMENT. I'm with Nevada Right to Life, testifying in opposition to SB 217. Nevada Right to Life is opposed to the bill as written, not necessarily the concept underlying. SB 217 will embed a non-scientific definition into Nevada law. This bill treats human embryos as medical products or property, not as living human beings, denying both the basic biological facts supported by modern embryology, medicine, and science, and the very real belief of the parents of these embryos who desperately want children. Please take a look at Section 10 of the bill. It's non-scientific and it's ideological. Majority Leader mentioned an Alabama case. In 2024, the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos were legally considered children under the state's Wrongful Death of a Minor Act. The case arose after several couples sued a fertility clinic for the accidental destruction of their embryos, arguing wrongful death. The court rightly sided with the parents in recognizing the profound loss of their family members, not just property. By treating embryos as non-persons, SB 217 undermines parental rights, denies legal recognition to the unborn, and reduces human life to disposable material immune from civil accountability. Families deserve the right to grieve, to seek justice, and to protect their unborn children, not a system that prioritizes medical institutions over moral responsibility. SB 217 serves primarily to shield fertility clinics and doctors from civil liability, not to serve or safeguard families, especially mothers. It entrenches a legal immunity for providers even when embryos, children, are mishandled or destroyed. Please vote no on SB 217.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom. And I am a mother, and I have 18 grandchildren, and I feel so blessed. But my heart breaks for those who want children and haven't been able to. It's always a question I have in my mind of why it's that way. I do have a couple of concerns about this bill. One of them is that it redefines life. We all know that life begins at conception. We have that scientifically proved these days. But we don't know the long-term consequences of changing that definition in this bill, and that concerns me. Another concern I have is the huge cost. Now, I know this isn't a fiscal committee, but this will have real-life impacts. The cost to insurance companies will raise all of our rates. Right now, many people can't afford insurance as it is, and they are struggling to put food on the table. So these will be real-life consequences that they will have to deal with, because this isn't a minor addition to an insurance policy. It's a huge cost, as well as a huge cost to our state Medicaid. So I appreciate the heartbreak of the people that have been here today, and my heart goes out to them, but we do have these concerns we want to share with you. Thank you very much.
My name is Cliff Nellis, CLIFF-NELLIS. And I'm here, I didn't intend to come down here for this, but I saw this and I thought, wow. I'm an advocate for all of the families of this area of the state. that are going to get whacked over the head with a 20% increase. That's my estimate in their insurance rates. I saw it around 2003. I sought to change my career, so I got an insurance selling license. So I sold mainly health insurance, but just on the side for my regular business. I could write a policy for a family, an HSA $5,000 deductible, pays 100% after the $5,000, which is much better than the bronze plan of Obamacare now, much better, for $300 a month. You know, what are people paying now, families? $1,700, $1,800 a month? I'm not even sure. You know, it's outrageous because of requirements on the insurance companies. And this is going to be a requirement that they pay for this. Have you guys seen how many auto body shops there are in Sparks? If insurance did not cover auto body repair, how many shops would there be? Instead of hundreds, there would be about 10. Because, you know, when you mandate insurance coverage, everyone else has to pay for your procedure. And this is not a disease. Now, I am for people having children. As a matter of fact, I think maybe an easier and cheaper solution would be ban the use of contraceptives.
Sir, can you please wrap up your testimony? Your time is up.
Okay, so that's just my opinion. Please consider the consequences of voting for something like this, because there's a lot of hidden traps.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Sir, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Joshua Skaggs, and I am the Legislative Affairs Director for the Nevada Republican Party, here today in opposition to SB 217. We ditto the concerns expressed by Nevada Right to Life. A serious concern we have with this bill is the significant fiscal note attached to it. The executive branch submitted a $38 million fiscal note primarily due to the need to provide coverage for IVF services to Medicaid beneficiaries. The federal government agreed to temporarily subsidize the Medicaid expansion during COVID-19 from 100% of the federal poverty level to 138%. There is concern that this temporary subsidy may be coming to an end, which will have a serious effect on the state's budget if we elect to continue the expansion. Adding another significant expense to Medicaid could be an issue for budgeting. I was also interested to read in the note that the $38 million is an estimate because no other state offers IVF services to their beneficiaries, so the fiscal note is based on an estimate of 5% utilization. However, because Nevada has no data from other states to rely on, the estimates could be significantly off. We don't believe that in the current environment that it makes sense for Nevada to add a potentially expensive benefit to Medicaid not offered by other states, and we urge caution on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 217, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Teresa DeGraffenreid, spelled Degraffenreid, a resident of Douglas County, here today in opposition of SB 217 on my own behalf. I echo the concerns expressed by Nevada Right to Life. I also have serious concerns with Section 10, which states, quote, that a fertilized egg or human embryo that exists before implantation in the uterus of a human body is not a human being for any purpose under Nevada law, end quote. This is a bill that claims to support human life and IVF to build families. It seems inappropriate to say that embryos are not human life when they most definitely are. It makes me wonder if this was an attempt to embed this horrible language in a bill. I also object to the use of the term, quote, pregnant person in the bill, as only women can become pregnant. Another attempt to embed horrible language and untrue information about IVF and women's health care. I also am concerned about this being a mandate for Medicaid and private insurers. This will bankrupt the Medicaid system and cause private health insurance companies to leave the state and small businesses to no longer offer insurance to their employees. I could be in support of this bill on the merits of protecting women and families needing IVF if these concerns were addressed by amendments. My final thought about this bill comes from Dr. Seuss and Horton Hears a Who. A person is a person, no matter how small. Thank you for listening to my testimony, and happy Friday.
Hi, this is Catherine Ivanov, IVANO Frank for the record. I want to say that my heart goes out to the people that are going through infertility problems. I personally went through that for several years. I couldn't afford IVF, and God blessed me with 2 kids. And regardless, I did try to go to the IVF route, so I feel for them. I like the intent of the bill. I really don't like how the bill is trying to rewrite what life is, trying to rewrite what pregnancy is, pregnant person. It's a slap in the face of every person that ever been pregnant, aka every woman that ever been pregnant, because no man has ever been pregnant. So there is no need of putting person where we all know it should be the word woman. I wish this bill is rewritten and it gives support to families that want to have kids but not leaving bunch of embryos laying around, not knowing what they're going to do with them or what anybody would do with the embryos that are left. Again, my heart goes out to people that go through that. I personally went through it. If the bill is written, please vote no. Thank you and have a lovely day.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Christiane Marsh, last name M-E-R-S-C-H, and I echo everything that Nevada Right to Life said in the statement. We oppose this bill. We are concerned about the term that it's not recognizing human and not people. It's just as a property. SB 217 strips legal recognition of that term, and let's be clear, this is dehumanizing. It means if a clinic destroys your embryo, Nevada law treats like lost property and not the death of your unborn child. Also, even worse, it gives a blanket immunity to IVF providers to not have accountability, no justice, even in case of gross negligence or malpractice, and you've seen that in the past happening. Guess what? It's also bad because mandates insurance coverage for IVF is very expensive procedure. And again, like a lot of people said here, we feel bad for families that cannot have babies in a natural way, but that's not the solution. Thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Perrine, Cynthia Perrine, and yes, compassion is in order for families who have difficulty expanding their families through IVF. Indeed, I think compassion is also in order for Nevada taxpayers who would have to foot indirectly or directly a very expensive program here. So I echo the thoughts of the others in opposition. Thank you.
Hi, Yolanda Knaak, Yolanda, last name Knaak, Chair and Committee. I agree with all the previous callers in opposition, but also just, having a family and paying for insurance is going to become unaffordable under this bill. I'm not opposed to IVF. I struggled myself with infertility, and I am opposed to this bill because of the things that have been mentioned, and especially the cost of a family's health insurance is going to be unaffordable. Please vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Our time has ended on the phone lines for opposition. Anyone still sitting on the phone lines in opposition to this bill, please submit it in writing, and I'll make sure that the entire committee gets it. We will move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Adam Plain, Plain, with the Nevada Division of Insurance. I do not have written testimony in Nellis, but I do have some from the Senate side that essentially still stands. The division wanted to make clear that our understanding of the legislative intent is that the provisions of Section 8 do not prohibit the division to actually enforce the provisions of a contract of insurance, that would not be considered substantially burdening the access to a member to reproductive services. Additionally, to the extent that the legislative body is considering looking at a year-round open enrollment period for people who are expecting or are pregnant, the division would note that Assembly Bill 425 from the 2013 legislative session included a provision at Section 33.5 subsection 2, which granted a year-round open enrollment period with 90-day wait for all plans off the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange. That was repealed in 2019 in Section 56 of Senate Bill 482. So if you're interested, I would encourage anyone to go look at the legislative history of that to figure out how that may or may not affect any decisions you make. Finally, this bill does not trigger any federal defrayal provisions, and we've worked with the sponsor to tighten up some of the language around which groups it affects and whatnot, and we want to thank her for working with us on that, and be happy to answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and committee. For the record, Shelley Capurro, representing the Nevada Association of Health Plans. We're an 11-member organization that includes both commercial and public plans. And while we appreciate the intent of the majority leader's legislation, mandates do often come with unintended consequences that can drive up costs for consumers and reduce plan flexibility. These increased costs ultimately translate into higher premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses for employers and individuals. Additionally, mandates can limit consumer choice by requiring all policyholders pay for coverage they may not want or need, reducing flexibility in plan options. As an association, our members estimate a minimum increased cost of $9 per member per month. We remain committed to enhancing healthcare quality and accessibility and welcome the opportunity to collaborate on policy solutions that align with legislative goals while ensuring Nevadans have access to affordable, sustainable healthcare coverage. And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Paul Murat with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is neutral in SB 217, and we appreciate the majority leader's work with the Chamber and other chambers of commerce and trade associations regarding the Association of Healthcare Plan component of the bill. Again, we appreciate her working with us, and we are neutral on the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 217, please press *9 now to join the queue.
Hello, my name is Crystal Minera Alvis, KRYSTALMINERA-ALVIS. And I do recognize the deep desire for many families to conceive and fully support ethical advancements. The questions and concerns that I do have, again, is just the ability to do that. And I do see that Senate Bill 217 expands on that, but also the concerns I have is does it consider the broader impact on healthcare affordability and insurance coverage by mandating IVF through insurance procedures? It may lead to increased premiums and reduced benefits for policyholders. And while it's ensuring access to fertility treatments, which are valuable, it's going to expand coverage requirements, which are going to place financial strains on individuals, businesses, and insurers. And overall, it's going to affect healthcare sustainability. Policyholders who may never use ART could also see their cost rise, and it can make coverage less affordable for many, many families. So I think there needs to be a true balance in accessibility with fairness in healthcare costs for essential long-term stability. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Chair, we have no additional callers in neutral.
Thank you. Majority Leader, would you like to give any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to address a couple of things because we've heard some of these just with respect to putting forward this bill on the Senate side, watching it move and having some folks come and talk to us. And I know, I think that Amanda Klein might still be down in Las Vegas. I know the cost aspect of this has been a question and a concern, so I don't know if she wanted to join and had anything to add. I see her coming up because I know that she knows just a bit about more about that. With respect to the piece where there may have been some confusion on the Medicaid portion, the way that we crafted this language is that this does not become effective until later on, with the idea that Medicaid can apply for waivers in order to be able to help pay for the costs of this as it pertains to Medicaid coverage. And I think the other pieces that I just wanted to touch very quickly on, the section 9, I would direct the committee for anyone who has concerns about whether or not this opens up liability. What we have done in this bill with the recognition that anytime you're engaged in IVF or assistive reproductive technology, the chances of an embryo not making it to a born baby is always a risk, right? Embryos may not ultimately begin to develop. An egg might not ultimately be fertilized. An embryo that is implanted in a uterus might not actually attach. And there are just different things about the existence of those embryos before they are implanted in a uterus that can cause them to just not make it. And so in recognition of that, and in light of the Alabama Supreme Court's decision, which effectively had shut off access to IVF because of a declaration that embryos in fact had personhood, that puts providers at risk for potential liabilities if we are not clear about exactly what it is they can and cannot be liable for. And Section 9 does nothing to abrogate any liability that would that would be imposed on any providers of reproductive health care who are engaged in IVF or ART if they're acting within the scope of their practice, if they are not negligent, if they are not committing a crime, or if there is not some other Nevada law that would impose those sorts of liabilities on them. And so this is really clarity, I think, to allow for the fact that in the course of IVF or ART, there are instances where it just does not work. And when it just does not work, that is not a reason for a provider to face those types of liabilities. The definition, likewise, in Section 10 is absolutely needed because that is actually what allows for IVF to continue to exist. It doesn't exist without some clarification that that embryo does not, in fact, have personhood, because if we do that, we will see the exact effects that we saw happen in Alabama, which was that providers are then effectively not going to be providing IVF because of that threat of liability. And so this really does provide those protections and the clarity in the law to ensure that we can still access those types of procedures here in Nevada. With respect to, I just want to, I can't help but note that the idea that somehow this is not a disease, I think, ignores some of the stories that we have heard today. No one is at fault for this. And the reason why we have included, and I would note in the bill, the places where we are acknowledging that infertility affects men and it does affect women. It doesn't affect just one type of individual in Nevada. I also think that that is something that you cannot control, and that's the whole purpose of this bill. It's the whole reason why we talk about IVF and ART. This is not somebody's fault. This isn't something that they did wrong. This is just something that they have to deal with. And so to the extent that there are some insinuation that because this is not some sort of disease, I just take exception with. And I would note for the committee members, you heard from so many parents who talked about how hard this is. And we don't talk about it enough, and we don't know about it enough because people are afraid to admit that they tried to have a child and it just didn't work. And I think that stigmatization is really harmful, and I think doesn't allow us to really address this. And so by sort of dismissing this as something that does not affect people or somehow is their fault is exactly what burdens so many families who are going through this, and really does make it so much more difficult and isolating than it already is. So with that, Madam Chair, if Ms. Klein had anything briefly to add just on the costs of it with respect to adding coverage, I would turn it over to her.
Thank you, Assemblymember Canizaro. Thank you, Chair Marzola, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Amanda Klein. You know, when we started down this journey several months ago, we did receive the initial fiscal analysis, and we did our own independent fiscal analysis as well. And we used real clinic data, real Nevada numbers, as well as worked with the Association for Reproductive Medicine, American Society for Reproductive Medicine, and other very well-known and well-respected organizations. And as a result, we found that this type of coverage would roughly be about 67 cents per member per month, not $9 or anything else we've heard today, 67 cents per member per month. And, you know, while my story represents perhaps the extreme situation, multiple rounds of IVF, needing a surrogate, all of the above, my president, who's not able to be here today, of Nevada Fertility Advocates, she just needed some simple diagnostic testing. So I think it's good to keep that in mind as well. And then the other thing I will say is that I've worked in healthcare and worked for health plans in this state for the last 20 years. And while I am certainly not an expert on finance, I can tell you that I've never seen my premiums go down. And so it would be really wonderful to see our premiums go towards something that makes a huge difference in thousands of lives in the state of Nevada. I also heard the commentary around Medicaid and why should we be adding to coverage for Medicaid? We'd be the first ones in the country. Yes, Nevada should be the first ones in the country to offer this to their entire population. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I forgot to say my name the last time, Nicole Canizaro. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time, and committee members. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Majority Leader, for being with us this afternoon. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 217. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 317. This measure revises provisions relating to industrial insurance. Good afternoon, Mr. Mills.
There it goes. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Jason Mills, Jasonmills, on behalf of the Nevada Justice Association. I wanted to thank you and your entire committee for hearing our bill today. Senator Daley is, as you may be aware, is currently in another hearing and couldn't be here, so we're going to proceed without him. But I wanted to say for the record, we appreciate the work that he's done on this. Every session, we try to get together with all the stakeholders in order to advance an omnibus workers' compensation bill that has the issues of claimants, injured workers taken care of and looked at, as well as the concerns that the industry and from insurers to self-insureds to large employers, small employers around the state. I can report to you that we've worked hard these last several months to bring to you 317, and I appreciate all the hard work that everyone's done, and I appreciate your time. I realize the bill is long. I'm going to present the bill, go through all of the sections quickly. I have Mr. Noble, Mr. Hooks, and Mrs. Chambers are here today, so if there are any questions on any portions of the bill, we will have those ready for you. We're working off of first the second reprint that contains the sections of the bill. As you can see, sections 1 through 4 have been deleted by amendment. Sections 4.1 and 4.5 require a notice of 24 hours for businesses before their inspections on their records. This has to do with safety concerns to make sure that their personnel is there, et cetera. Sections 4.2 of the bill have to do with adjusting a payroll cap that had been in place since 1995 and has not been adjusted for several decades and is now being adjusted effectively with a COLA. Section 4.3 removes a double bonding requirement in the statute against self-insured groups. Section, as does Section 4.4. Section 4.5 has to do with setting a 14-day time window when these groups receive their premiums back from, their assessments back from the state, that there's a window of time of 14 days that those payments are paid back to them. It doesn't alter whether or not they are or not paid. It's just the time window. With regard to Section 4.6, there's conforming dates, and 4.7. These are conforming dates that have to do with changes that we're making in the law to set those dates out at September 1st, 2026. Sections 6, 7, 8, and 9 have all been deleted by amendment. Section 9.3 allows for physician's assistants to do follow-up care in industrial cases where the claimant gives express agreement or authority for that to happen. Section 9.5 adopts a formulary system for medication in the workers' compensation, along with Section 9.7. What it does is it also allows for emergency type scenarios for the use of non-formulary drugs to be authorization is not required, as well as if there's any challenges by the doctors or the claimants, they have the right to go to court to challenge if there's any denials in that particular space. Section 14 has multiple parts on it. There's requirements for the doctors, that the insurers warrant the doctors on their list will treat and accept workers' compensation treatment since it's their list. Sections that they update their lists every September through October 1st. That doctors that cancel their contracts with the insurers can be removed from the list. Every 3 years, an industrial insurer can remove doctors from their list, but again, they must conform with the rules that they warrant that all the doctors will accept and treat workers' compensation. The state must update and require a format for all of the insurers to essentially say what the lists look like so that they're all in a standardized format. However, due to cost concerns, there's a provision in there that basically indicates that the state can't compel the insurers to upload their lists into a proprietary software system. And I'll point out an amendment in a few minutes that there is an amendment that allows the state to nonetheless do that of their own volition, should they so choose. Section 15 of the bill deletes an old and non-used section of the police and fire heart and lung section, which essentially requires this crazy system of how you get second opinions for heart and lung examinations. It's a complete mess, so we're removing that particular part of the bill, or of the existing law. Section 15.5 has to do with the formularies. Section 16, 18, 19, 21, 22, 26, 31 have to do with the removal of the outdated MCO appeal process, and the appeal process will just be the normal appeal process that we already use in the work comp system. Section 17 allows, and this is a very important one, allows for the addition. Section 17 allows for the addition of psychological evidence in mental stress claims and workers' compensation cases to be able to be utilized, and most importantly, it allows not just psychiatrists to treat these claims, but psychologists, clinical clinicians, and licensed marriage and family therapists due to the shortage of the number of mental health care providers that exist in the workers' compensation space. With regard to sections 18 and 19, again, that references more language of the removal of the outdated MCO appeal process. Section 20 has to do with the hearing and appeals divisions keeping up a calendar of the hearings and the appeals on a government website. They're already doing this. This just statutizes it. With regard to sections 21 and 22, again, more references to removal of section 616 C305, which is the MCO appeals process that I mentioned earlier. Sections 23 and 24 have to deal with the stay motion rules and procedures that are treated differently all throughout the courts and the appeals process. This statutizes and standardizes that process. Sections 24 and 32 also indicates that we have a problem in the state where if there's any technical errors in petitions for judicial review, like it's in the wrong venue, et cetera, those cases based upon existing Supreme Court case law are summarily dispensed with, whether that's a claimant that's pro per or an insurer that doesn't name the correct party. These appeals are just rejected. We think that's exceptionally harsh, so we've removed those sections there. We've altered the language to allow for the courts to themselves to decide whether or not those faulty procedures would be in place, and they can lift them. Again, Section 26 deals with another aspect of the MCO, Managed Care Organization, appeals process, being in the appeals division. Section 27 has to do with temporary partial disability payments, and those, when they're requested, they would be paid within 14 days of receipt of the proof of that. Section 28 and 29 deals with the alteration of discovery rules in the workers' compensation system. Right now, it's a bit of a mess. We're looking to standardize that by adopting some standards and looking to the Nevada Rules of Civil Procedure to guide us somewhat. Sections 30 alters the ministerial timeframes that the Division of Industrial Relations can reset the penalties on ministerial clerical errors that insurers make, not on benefit penalties, work that Senator Daley did last session. These changes do not amend or alter any of the benefit penalty systems that were put in place that are altered last session. Section 31, yet again, the MCO language, updating the appeals process. Section 32 also deals with the petition for judicial review dismissals on the improper misnaming or improper venue. And sections 32.3 through 35 have to deal with the effective dates. Section 34 is the repeal sections that we talked about briefly. And then turning to the amendments that are in front of you, Section 4.5, that's the separate document that is supplied. Sections 4.15 is being amended, has to do with the representative can now use electronic copies to provide to the division when they're providing investigations of them. It's not just a hard paper format. Very rarely do insurers use paper these days. With regard to Section 616B 0275 allows our largest employers in the state of self-insured private employees of more than 30,000 to allow to adjust their claims out of state as long as they're providing their claims managers are accessible on Nevada time and Nevada dates. This is already the rules for large insurers in this state. With regard to Section 4.2, this was a change by the Department of Administration that they requested. Again, I mentioned earlier with regard to the COLA change cap for the way the self-insured groups and other the way the employees policies are paid every year, or how their fees are assessed in assessing these workers' compensation insurance policies. The state had a concern that they didn't know what the impact may or may not be. So basically, the changes allows for the state to keep the old cap or use the new cap, whichever cap they prefer. They're the sovereign entity. They can pick. The state was satisfied with those changes. A couple of changes in Section 14. Again, we wanted to make clear that when the insurers and administrators provide their formatted lists to the Division of Industrial Relations for their doctors, and that an exact copy in an unaltered state is provided by the Division of Industrial Relations, loaded up on its website. And subpart 12 of Section 14 has to do with a concession that all the industry and the claimants gave back to the state, where we didn't want to bar the ability of them to upload their documents and data into the state. The state couldn't require them to do that with regard to their doctor lists. So we added a provision here that the state can take that data and put it into their proprietary state system. And with that, that is, in Section 34 was to rather than repeal S616B 410, there's amendments that between the self-insured groups and the Division of Insurance talked about amendments rather than straight repeal, and this rather than appeal it allows the language that satisfied the DOI and the self-insured groups. And with that, that's the entire bill. I've got everyone here at the table ready to answer questions if you have them. That's as fast as I can go.
There's some parts that I didn't understand,
Sure.
so can we go through it again? No, I'm just kidding.
All right, Section 4.1. No.
So before I pass it to members, I just have a quick question on page 10, so Section 4.6, as it relates to the date. I thought you stated September 1st, but on the document itself states September 30th. So I just want to confirm it is September 30th.
Oh, this has to do, if I recall, this is the formulary implementation date?
No, that's further on. This is the self-insured.
So it's Section 4.6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's September 30th is when this ends. That is correct. The September 1st portions, I was talking about doctor provider lists, not this section. My apologies.
Thank you.
Jason Mills for the record.
Thank you for the clarification. Committee members, are there any questions? I don't see any. This is what happens when you come at the end of the agenda. We will start with support testimony of Senate Bill 317. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You each have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. Todd Inglesby, representing Professional Firefighters of Nevada, and I'll talk as fast as Jason Mills. And this is a great bill. We support it. We love the collaboration of everybody to make it better for our workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Marzol, members of the committee. My name is John Abel, here representing the LVPPA. I want to thank all the stakeholders and Jason Mills. We're in full support of this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, Paul Enos. I'm the CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association. I'd like to thank our friends of the Nevada Justice Association for working with us on this legislation. It's kind of rare that business and that organization come together on something, but there's times when we can come to a grand bargain. Workers' comp has traditionally been one of those areas, so really appreciate the work on this bill and in great support of Senate Bill 317. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzol and members of the committee. For the record, Andrew McKay, Executive Director of the Franchise Auto Dealers Association, echoing the comments previously made, but do want to make sure I put on the record. Thanks, Senator Daley, but in particular, Mr. Mills, Ms. Coolbaugh, and the team over at NJA. This has been a lengthy process, something that we've all come together with and we completely agree on. I think the tilt of the axis of the Earth has shifted a few degrees because this is a tantamount change at the legislature. But I just want to make sure to put it on the record to thank them for working so diligent with us, and please support the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Harrison Porter, HARRISONPORTER. Just want to echo the support on behalf of the LVPMSA, who I represent, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Marzola. Committee members, Misty Grimmer wearing two hats today. First, the Nevada Resort Association is also in support, and then also Employers Insurance Company. Since John was part of the presentation, he thought it would be weird to come back up. So.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Jason Gray, Vice President, Government Affairs, MGM Resorts, here to testify in support of SB 317. A lot of really important consequential issues addressed in this bill, and we're grateful for the compromise. It will help us and our ability to service our 45,000 Las Vegas team members, so I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. I don't think I see anyone in Las Vegas. Are you wanting to support Senate Bill 317? Okay, no. Oh, I don't know how you guys see that. Oh. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
To testify in support for Senate Bill 317, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, the lines are open and working. We have no callers for support.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 317? I don't see anyone. There's no one in Las Vegas. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 317, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers for opposition at this time.
Thank you. We'll move to testimony in neutral. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Adam Plain, PLAIN, with the Nevada Division of Insurance. We'd like to thank all the participants and interested parties for working with us on the effective date of that wage cap change, as well as the self-insured group industry with working with us to not repeal a particular provision and instead amend it. Division staff does still find some utility in it. Again, thanks to everyone involved. It was good collaboration. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in neutral? I don't see anyone. There's no one in Las Vegas. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
To testify in neutral to Senate Bill 317, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers for neutral.
Thank you. Mr. Mills, would you like to give any closing remarks? I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 317. 1 minute recess. The committee will come back to order. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 173. This bill establishes provisions relating to the environment. Welcome, Senator Neal.
Good afternoon, Assembly Committee, Commerce and Labor. I'm Senator Neal here to quickly present SB 173. If you guys have had the day that I have had, it's very special. All right, so I'm just gonna get right into it. So this is my omnibus environmental justice bill. It has several pieces in it, working with different stakeholders. So at the section 2 talks about food delivery service and what basically you can opt out of in regards to disposable foodware and accessories. So when I was talking to Sierra Club, I believe in 23, they're talking about all this waste that goes to the side of the road when people order food, and they just throw items away. And so I believe California is doing this, where basically you just want to make sure that you're going to get the things that you're going to need in order to eat your meal. Section 6, pretty much the huge section is the PFAS language. I had a bill on PFAS in 2023. It was vetoed, and then I'm bringing it back relating to PFAS being actually in certain products. So there's a listing of products related to food packaging, juvenile products, carpet, cookware, and making sure that these products are being limited in their use and then also labeled. The next section, because that's a huge section, pretty much 5 through, I believe, 26 is PFAS. And then when we get into the middle of the bill, I get into heat islands. And so in section 29, I wanted to go after the heat islands that are happening and try to make sure that the local government within their redevelopment areas, that they were going to use 1% of their RDA money in order to mitigate heat deserts. So I was talking to DRI, Desert Research Institute, and this particular section is an attempt to try to formalize what we were doing around heat deserts and making sure that we know that there are nonprofits and local governments that may be participating, but there isn't a formalized way in which we, identify whether or not the trees are living or dying. Making sure that there's true coordination between the seeds that were planted. And when I really got into that particular portion of the heat desert, I was looking at Arizona, and there was a study that came up where Arizona had planted trees in order to mitigate heat, and they were the wrong trees. So I started asking the questions on, do we know what kind of seeds that we're planting? Are we making sure that those trees that we plant are actually going to produce shade? And do we have a formalized process in which we do it? And then when I spoke to DRI, they were telling me that, we don't actually, like the Southern Nevada the Water Authority may have the seeds, but we're not actually tracking whether or not the trees live or die. So this allows for nonprofits and other groups to work together in order to create a formalized way. Also produces a grant that they can apply for that 1% from the redevelopment money. And then I believe the final piece is related to in section 33.3. There was a young medical student who co-testified on the other side of the House. He's actually at UNLV Med School, and he was deeply concerned about the microplastics that are in cutting boards, plastic cutting boards. And so this is our amendment, working with the Southern Nevada Health Authority and stakeholders in order to create some language where they can adopt protocols which kind of mimics protocols that already exist around how they go and inspect surfaces that are being used to prepare food within a restaurant. And then that's the bill, and with that, I will open myself up for questions. It's a lot.
Thank you, Senator, for your presentation. Committee members, are there any questions? Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator Neal, for this very expansive piece of legislation. It only has like 37 section. I think, actually it has 39. I think you could have gotten 45, so I'm a little disappointed, but next time. So I did have a question in regards to the cosmetology components of this piece of legislation. I didn't hear you talk about those in your presentation, so if you could just kind of hit on those.
Thank you for that, and I did forget, I just skipped right on over that, and that's actually a very important piece. So in that, that provision, that section, I wanted to go after, so currently, there was a congressional piece of legislation that has not passed, trying to go after the use of formaldehyde in hair products. We know that formaldehyde in hair products is causing cancer and other harmful conditions related to women or men who may use the hair products. I also threw in there because a study came out where around braid hair and weave hair that may have had lead components or other harmful chemicals. And so the bill is strictly limited to just retail stores that may be selling those products. So I had to limit it down. This won't be the Department of Cosmetology going to Walmart or Walgreens, but just actually to the retail stores that sell hair products to test to make sure that, number one, formaldehyde will no longer be in those products. Two, testing braid hair or weave hair to determine whether or not there was any other kind of coating that may have been produced on the hair that is then could be a carcinogen or harmful to human life. And so why this is possible is because UNR actually has a machine. They have part of the machine, and then this bill will allow them to purchase the additional piece so that Department of Cosmetology and UNR would then create an MOU to then work together to not only UNR would test the products and then Department of Cosmetology would go and, inspect the retail spaces.
Thank you for that response. So in this, then right now, it would be more for us to purely set up the mechanisms for testing. It's not banning the sale of those products, or would it then also ban the sale of those products?
So, Senator Neal, for the record, basically, this would be banning formaldehyde in a hair product. But they do have to test and do an inspection, because once the prohibition comes down, then a retail site would have to get rid of those products off the shelf, or that is the expected result.
Thank you for that response. I'm going to go ahead and I might have more questions, but thank you. I appreciate it.
And just following up on my colleague's question, so what happens to all the money that these, I think of small businesses, right? They've bought all of this product and this substance is found. So obviously those products aren't being returned to them, and all the money that they have spent. Are we helping them in any way, or it's just we're taking these products because at this, point it's banned?
So, Senator Neal, for the record, the point is that if you're selling a product that has formaldehyde, which we know to be dangerous to the person who is using it, that you have to remove that product because it is being stated that it is harmful to a person that may be using a shampoo, gel, or et cetera, right? So there isn't a replacement product, because it really goes after the entity that is actually manufacturing that, and then telling them not to continue to manufacture that. So the retail store that hosts it, the Department of Cosmetology would go in there, inspect, and then they could potentially fine that store. But ultimately, the goal is to get those kinds of products off the shelf that have formaldehyde in it.
And I do understand that, Senator. Obviously, if it's, harmful to Nevadans, yes, they should be taken off the shelf. I guess my question was geared more towards, what happens if you have a mom and pop small store, how can they replace these products? Do we have an avenue of, and you and I can talk offline to just kind of brainstorm. Any addition? Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I want to follow up on that. As people know, I really do love my hair. So I have a lot of questions and concerns about this. So it looks like we're only banning it for retail. So then salon services that might contain formaldehyde then would continue to be able to take place, or am I interpreting that wrong?
So Senator Neal, for the record, if it is not within a retail space, there was no capacity for Department of Cosmetology to go and look everywhere. Clearly, there was a fiscal note attached to this measure, and I had to really narrow the scope because originally they would have gone across statewide everywhere in order to examine and inspect. That wasn't feasible, so that was limited.
Thank you. We can take the conversation offline. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna have legal clarify as far as the banning of the product.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sam Quas, Committee Counsel. The bill as written only provides for the testing of these products. There is no ban in the bill as written, so this would set up a process where they're testing these products in these particular retail stores so that they can get that information, but there's nothing in there that makes it, illegal to sell any of these products.
Any additional questions, committee members? Member Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing forward the legislation. My question has to do with Section 29, because I think the heat index is an incredibly important thing for us to discuss. And I'm wondering if this is only, if it is pop capped, as is done in some other sections of the bill, or if this is for statewide information for the consideration of the heat islands and the redevelopment areas.
Senator Neal, thank you for the question, and then I want to go back and address the other part from legal. So Section 29, it only applies to if the city has an RDA. It's whatever falls under NRS 279, and I purposely did it that way. Number one, because those are mostly the blighted areas, the urban areas in which there is a need to talk about the urban island heat effect. I placed it also in the RDA because I needed to figure out a way to pay for it.
Senator, did you say you wanted to address what legal stated?
Yeah, because, thank you, Senator Neal, because we can probably talk offline, because I thought my original reprint had a banning of the product. So we can just talk offline, because when this was presented, clearly I wasn't in the building. And I just want to make sure that there wasn't an error from my original language on what I wanted to do, because I didn't want the actual product to be, the formaldehyde to exist in the actual product. So I just want to go back and look at the original to the second reprint and make sure that something wasn't missed, because that's what's throwing me off, I think, what's happening right now.
Thank you for clarifying that. And with that, we will move to support testimony of Senate Bill 173. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in support? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Olivia Tanager. For the record, that's OLIVIATANAGER. I'm the director of the Sierra Club's Toyabe chapter, the state's largest grassroots environmental organization. We're here in proud support of SB 173 and appreciate Senator Neal's work on this bill. You heard that there are a number of really great things in this bill. The skip the stuff provision we're very excited about. We know that exposure to plastic is really unhealthy for our communities. We know that heat's really unhealthy for our communities. We appreciate that this addresses urban heat. We know that formaldehyde is really unhealthy for Nevadans. And what I appreciate most about Senator Neal's approach is we know that while all those things are harmful, they are disproportionately harmful for many Nevadans, for low-income Nevadans, for communities of color in Nevada. And so I really appreciate her approach to environmental justice and to phasing things out of Nevada that are harmful for Nevadans. And with that, we urge your support. Thank you.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jackie Spicer. I represent the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. We're in strong support of this bill today because environmental injustices take many forms, and we have to do everything we can to tackle these issues. So while this bill is multifaceted, including banning things like PFAS forever chemicals and attempting to mitigate the urban heat island effect, we really do need to be tackling all of these things. To start, PFAS exposure and synthetic hair products have been linked to cause cancer, and proven studies show that, as well as with urban heat island effects. I'm sure many of you are aware, but we do have the 2 fastest warming cities in the United States. It's really important that we are doing everything we can to tackle this issue. I also want to thank Senator Neal for including a provision on how we can continue to fund the Desert Research Institute's work on this. We have been involved in their extreme heat working group for the last 2 years, which brings together jurisdictions in Southern Nevada, as well as service providers and advocacy groups to try and tackle this critical issue. And the funding is at stake because NOAA, the National Oceanic and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, funding is at risk under the Trump administration. So in order to keep this critical work going in our state, we do need to have a way to fund it here. So I appreciate that as well. Thank you so much for your time and dedication to the people of our state.
Hi, Chair and members of the committee. Sheila Bray with the University of Nevada, Reno. We are written into sections 36 and 37, a little bit of what the senator talked to, and so we're in great support of this bill. As you'll see in 36, we'll help to develop that test that will identify those chemicals within hair braiding and such, and then also for the section of identifying seedlings that are best to be planted within the southern area, urban island. Yeah. I looked at Assemblymember Anderson. I totally lost my train of thought. Just kidding, just kidding. All right, thank you. We're in full support, and thank you, Senator.
Chair Marzola and members of the committee, my name is Jordan Chong, Jordanchong for the record. I'm the youth legislator for Senate District 13, but I am speaking for myself right here that I support Senate Bill 13 and especially the provisions about hazardous PFAS chemicals in consumer products. So I've been researching PFAS for a couple years at the University of Nevada, Reno, and in that time I've learned just how harmful and pervasive these chemicals are in our products and in our environment. But I've also come to consider that our regulations need to be conservative and well-planned just because of how integrated they are in our economy. So I really appreciate that rather than being a blanket ban, that this bill focuses on the applications where PFAS are just simply unnecessary, and yet they pose the greatest risk of exposure to consumers. We don't need forever chemicals in our takeout boxes or in our clothes or in our cosmetics. Industry groups are right that phasing out these chemicals might be an involved process, but there's not a single product covered by this bill where a reasonable alternative cannot be found. I also appreciate the focus on children's products in this bill. As a youth legislator, I represent the youth, and young children are highly exposed to PFAS because they put things in their mouths. And once PFAS is in a child's body, it's able to wreak havoc on their body for a very long time. PFAS has been linked to health effects such as pediatric cancers. So please vote in support of Senate Bill 173. Thank you for the time.
Chair Marzola, members of the committee, Tracy Bauer with the Desert Research Institute. You heard a little bit about our Nevada Heat Resilience Lab. We're happy to work with the cities and the redevelopment areas to try to combat the urban heat island effect. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. There's no one in Las Vegas. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, we have no callers in support.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 173. Is there anyone in Carson City?
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jay Parmer, Jayparmer. I'm here today representing the Nevada Manufacturers Association. The Nevada Manufacturers Association opposes Senate Bill 173, specifically the ban on intentionally added PFAS and its impact on current and future manufacturing in Nevada. PFAS chemicals are ubiquitous throughout manufacturing process for a reason. There is currently no replacement for the intentional use of PFAS for protection against heat, water damage, and other factors which cause parts and materials to fail, including currently firefighter uniforms. The timelines for banning PFAS proposed in the bill are unworkable for existing manufacturers. The Nevada Manufacturers Association testified in the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee that while the manufacturing sector is taking steps to find alternatives to PFAS, there is no viable timeline for replacement of those chemicals recognized at this time. Large processors of PFAS chemicals continue to ship these products to manufacturing facilities around the country and plan to do so through at least 2028. In fact, the use of PFAS chemicals has increased in certain manufacturing sectors, particularly synthetic garments, in order to increase fire retardant properties that would otherwise place consumers at risk for burns when exposed to open flames. For these reasons, the Nevada Manufacturers Association continued to be opposed to the portion of the bill which requires a ban on intentionally added PFAS chemicals. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in opposition for Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Keane, John Kean, with the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers. We represent major portable and floor care appliances in the United States and Canada. For this bill, it represents your powered kitchen appliances. First, I want to thank Senator Neal for engagement on this issue. We're here with concerns as Senate Bill 173 as currently written. It can be addressed and moved to neutral in the proposed amendment that Senator Neal has proposed. Section 25 would require manufacturers of cookware that contain potentially added PFAS to label those products. Cookware is currently defined very broadly as durable houseware products used in the residence or kitchen to prepare, dispense, and store food, including without limitation several products, including without limitation language. There's a concern about what products would be incorporated into this labeling provision. A couple of years ago, California enacted a similar cookware disclosure law. During the deliberations on that bill, they removed, but it's not limited to language. So the removal of the without limitation language, this would remove an area of uncertainty cookware manufacturers and ensure harmonization across the region. With that, we encourage the committee to support the proposed amendment, remove the without limitation language to ensure clear compliance. Thank you.
Chair, we have no additional callers for testimony.
Thank you. We'll move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? I don't see anyone. There's no one in Las Vegas broadcast. Is there anyone on the line?
Chair, we have no callers to provide neutral testimony.
Thank you. Senator, would you like to give any closing remarks? No. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 173. 1 minute recess. We will now come back to order. We will begin our work session on 4 of the bills that we heard today pursuant to Rule 57.4, which allows a waiver of the 24-hour rule. Speaker has allowed us to waive the 24-hour rule. And with that, we will start with Senate Bill 165. Which establishes provisions relating to behavioral health. Do I have any discussion? I'll entertain a motion to do pass.
So moved.
Second. I have a first from Assemblymember Carter, a second from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there any discussions? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next is Senate Bill 217. Oh, I'll assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Cole. Next is Senate Bill 217, which makes revisions relating to reproductive health care. Any questions? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to do pass.
So moved.
I have a first from Assembly Member Carter. I have a second from Vice Chair Howdigi. Any discussion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. You can raise your hands. I have a nay from Assembly Member O'Neill, Kasama, Urick, Cole, and Hardy. Motion carries. I'll assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Roth. It's been a long day. Next is Senate Bill 317, which revises provisions relating to industrial insurance. Any discussions? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 317. I have a first from Assembly Member Cole, a second from Vice Chair Howdigi. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I'll assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Urick. Next is Senate Bill 389, which revises provisions relating to the administration of pharmacy benefits under Medicaid and certain other health plans. Any questions? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to do pass on Senate Bill 389. I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there a second? I have a second from Vice Chair Carter. Any discussion on the motion? What did I say? Vice Chair Carter. Oh. Vice Chair, a first from Vice Chair Howdigi, a second from Assemblymember Carter. There we go. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Hardy. And that ends our work session for today. I will now open up for public comment. Please remember, public comment is to address issues that fall within the jurisdiction of this committee. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to provide public comment? I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Thank you, Chair. Our public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. This concludes our meeting for today. This meeting's adjourned.